My name is Sena Nombo, and it's my privilege to welcome you to another edition of the Mother of All Talk Shows. It's probably brought to you by Franco Trading Enterprise, Kulun Ghana Limited, and TT Brothers. They are sponsors of the program. Big thank you to them this morning for supporting us. And this morning, as usual, we'll be discussing the major issues that have made the headlines this week. And then we'll be taking your views too. You can send your views throughout the program on 0233-995905, 0233-995905. Or if you're watching on Facebook through PABMCGH, just go to their comment section and make a comment on any of the topics we'll be discussing at any point in time. So join us. It's very important to hear from you, to be sure that you are listening to us. So share your views with us on any of the topics that you'll be listening to today. And this morning, I'll be having in the studio Comrade Kwesi Prajimia, who is managing editor of the Inside Newspaper and regular panelist on the program, Professor Nino Dowona, as a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, and an agronomist. We also have Mr. Emmanuel Wilson, who is Director of Communications of the People's National Convention, and Yao Broja Jemfi is a former Ashanti Region youth organizer of the National Democratic Congress, and they are joining me this morning to discuss the topics that we have picked for ourselves. Today we are talking about the agricultural sector of the economy in the country, the policies and programs for socio-economic development as Ghana celebrated farmers yesterday, as well as the plights and challenges of the farmers and the related concerns. When I caught my producer, Patrick Asford-Boyd, who has taken it upon himself to go around some cocoa farming communities in the country to interact with them. So you realize that before we came, I introduced the program. One of the things we heard before the president's address was what the cocoa farmers have been saying about their situation as we speak currently. And so those are some of the issues we like. And if you're a farmer too and you like to contribute to this discussion, tell us about how you have been doing, how you have been coping. Is it getting better, like the president said? Because yesterday when you listened to the president speak, you listened to the Minister of Agri speak, and of course you listened to the Minister of Fisheries speak. The Minister of Fisheries was praising the Minister of Agri, the president was praising the Minister of Agri and praising his government. So are they getting the results they are talking about on the ground? So if you're a farmer, share with us your own experiences and tell us whether, and if you're benefiting from the Planting for Food and Jobs program, tell us how it is going and whether it has helped significantly in your yield. The cocoa farmer too, are you doing well? Is it getting better? Because we recently heard that some of you have had difficulties in accessing some of the things that you used to access, in making sure that your work is easier. So that's our very first discussion, and our panelists will be leading this discussion for us. And the second one, we're talking about the National Democratic Congress, the presidential primaries. Now, last week when we were here, the big issue was the 400,000 that was being charged for filing fees. Now, that has been reduced to 300,000 now after a petition from some aspirants. And also, some of the aspirants have since been able, they have had discussions with the National Council of Elders of the party, so they have been able to pick up forms. So the park is clearing now. We understand by yesterday, that one of the aspirants has actually officially withdrawn his interest, and he's backing former President Mahama. That is lawyer Elikulim Agboma, but he decided not to file. And so that is also a development in that front. So we'll be talking about what has happened this week, and we'll be talking about some of the aspirants who have officially, because we understand that this morning Mr. Guzitano, representative from Mr. Guzitano, will pick up forms for him to contest the elections. And when the filing fees were reduced to 300,000, Mr. Kospio Gabra and ALHAJI N Alhajiiii, they have also picked forms to contest. Already we have had Mr. Sylvester Mensah, Professor Joshua Alabi, Stephen Atubiga, and there was a form that was picked on behalf of Honorable Alban Bagbin, who is still actually challenging that fact. He said that he did not send the person to do that. We are unclear whether he will pick up a separate form or he'll accept the forms that were picked up for him. Former President Mahama was the first person to pick up the form, not him, but was picked up for him by some members of the Asawasi NDC. So that is our second topic, and that if we have time, we'll talk about, we'll get some optional comments from our panelists on the issues that perhaps drew their attention that they would like to talk about that if we still have time after the discussion. So if you just join us, you're still on the Mother of all talk shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. My name is Sana Nombo. Show is produced by Patrick Asford Boedu, and we are sponsored by TT Brothers, Cologne Ghana Limited, Franco Trading Enterprise. And Franco Trading Enterprise says you can enjoy an amazing 30% on any of the following products when you buy from their online: phone and accessories, tablet, flat screen TVs, and laptop, and also printers, among others. Simply download the Franco Trading app from your Google Play Store. Place your order and phone will be delivered right at your doorstep, and that app really does work. Now, if you're having challenges with the Franco Trading Franco app, just uninstall and download again. Uninstall and download the app again. You can visit francotrading.com or francophones, francotrading.com or francophones, and place an order today, and you get 30% discount on whatever product you choose. Their branches are at Adabraka, opposite Roxy Cinema bus stop, UTC roundabout behind the Death Spite building, La Paz near Niboy Junction, opposite Prudential Bank, Circle close to Odorais, also opposite Echo Bank, Oxford Street, opposite Tema, opposite Water West Community 1, Medina Old Road, opposite HFC Bank, Hacho, opposite Hacho Station, Kofoida on the All Nations University College Road, or on the Market Road, opposite Amagashi Building, Kasua, opposite the Kasua Polyclinic. You can call them on 0302-225-651, 0302-225-651, or 0546-133-188. Franco Trading, phone, Pepe Fee. So they are one of the sponsors of ALHAJI and ALHAJI. Well, once again, welcome. And let me bring in my guests now, but just don't forget that you can send in your messages. Just keep doing that. 0233-995905. And let me start with Yao Brujajenfi. Good morning.
Good morning, Sana.
First time on the show.
Sure, yes, and it's good to be here. It's a huge platform that has many discerning listeners and audience. So it's good to have such a national platform to discuss issues of national importance and national development.
And it's good to have
you. I'm happy and privileged to be on the ALHAJI and ALHAJIiii show for the first time.
Good to have you.
Yeah, good. I first of all would have to join many Ghanaians, including the National Democratic Congress as a party, and His Excellency the former President John Dramani Mahama, in congratulating farmers across the country on a day as we celebrated yesterday, the National Farmers Day. We all know the importance of such a day and why the NDC government under His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, instituted the day to celebrate farmers and fishermen, and also to say that the agri sector is one of the most important sectors for our economic development. You notice the number of persons involved in the agri sector, whether through planting themselves or dealing with post-harvest issues, or even agri-processing and businesses. All the chain persons that are involved in the sector should communicate to every policymaker that the agri sector is critical to the development of our country. And it is the reason why governments must pay attention and more investment in the sector. In the area of employment creation, you cannot underrate the importance of the agri sector. Both persons that are skilled, persons that are unskilled, they are all able to get something to do in that sector. It also gives us, income as a nation, and help, build up reserve in terms of foreign, exchange, the strength that we have, and all of that. Feeding of families, people engage in it to feed their families, and also even to get raw material for the growth of industry. So even as you preach industrialization, you must also have an eye on agriculture, so that you can be able to supply industries to also grow. And also that sector also deals with employment. So agri, is almost everywhere. And that is why in a program like this, we need to highlight the importance and to also draw government attention to the need to make more investment in that sector. If you read the statement that was issued by His Excellency, the former President, John Dramani Mahama, he called on government to actualize the many talk on agri in terms of investment, pushing investment into the agri sector. It is not out of nothing. It is because pushing investment, consciously investing in the agri sector will also boost our economic growth and serve, many strategies that will help to solve some of our problems, as I have mentioned earlier. And in terms of routes, access to these communities, in order that they can get their farm produce to the market, in order that the persons involved in the agri sector can also feel to be part of the country, we need to take a critical look at that sector and the investment in that area. The market, the storage. I listened to the speech yesterday by His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, where he talks about, the warehouses and all of that. It is good the government talks about it, but it is more important that government actualizes the talk and actually invest in warehouses, storage for farm produce after they have been produced, so that in the lean season we can also get food and also continue to have that cycle run. Agri modernization, how to grow from the using cutlasses and hoes in order to use farm equipment that can aid in faster cultivation and all of that. But today we still see cutlasses being given to best farmers at the district level, some even at the national level. So we continue to tell them that these are the implements that you need to rely on. Government must graduate from that, strategy of the past into a modernized way of doing business in the agri sector, and also linking agri to businesses. How we'll be able to have that phase of agriculture and linked to actual, businesses, people in that link, the middlemen that are created to buy the farm produce and go to do whatever they want to do with it. How do we get the businesses direct to the farmer, so that the farmer gets maximum benefit from it? I read, I think about 2 days ago, the front page of the Daily Graphic, where it was published that we have had plantain in abundance, and we are even exporting some to neighboring countries like Burkina Faso and all of that. Though the story was to create a mischief, because some government communicators have started trumpeting that it is as a result of the Planting for Food and Job program that is yielding that abundance in plantain production. I'll deal with that later on. But if you read that story, you would notice in detail that it is about how we can improve access, because it talks about many of the roads that were constructed in 2016 under NDC, which has opened up the Afram Plains area in the Asante-Akin North, and the Secha-Afram Plains, which is Drobonso, where now many people have gotten to know that they can have access to the plains and can actually grow plantain and get results. So many people are now growing plantain, and because we had good rains, we have seen the production in abundance. That is what we need to focus on. So if government attention was not on plantain, and because people had access, people invested in the cultivation of plantain, people went there, and we have had that result. What would have happened if government had put much more investment and monitoring and focus on the crops that were selected for the Planting for Food and Job? We should have gotten more, because there was direct, government attention, the slogans and the investment, the budgetary allocations that we had. We should have had many produce from rice, for example. But if you check by government's own statistics, in spite of all the investment that we made in rice production, local rice production, we had only 5% increment in 2017 over what we had in 2016. So you ask yourself, were the investment worth it? Maize, for example, from a target of 35%, we had 15% over in 2017, and we even imported more maize in 2017 than we had done previously. So government's attention and direct investment is necessary for the agricultural sector. Many governments have focused on it. His Excellency, the former president's administration, the NDC administration, that's the immediate past administration. So it's good that you do that comparison. Did a lot of things for the agri sector. The mechanization centers, we all know, to assist farmers who needed them to come and then get the equipment to go and work on their farms. The many irrigation projects that have been left, unattended to were revamped, rehabilitated. Government pushed a lot of money into that. The fertilizers that were given to farmers for free, I'm talking about the cocoa farmers. And then the National Fertilizer Subsidy program, which also catered for other farmers. Government subsidized it 50%. The MPP came in, they said they wanted to do Planting for Food and Job. So they were going to subsidize it at a higher rate, giving it to farmers at 25%. Now we are back to the National Fertilizer Subsidy Program. In the 2019 budget, government is no longer doing what it, prayed to do regards to the Planting for Food and Job. So Planting for Food and Job is actually dead, because it was because of the fertilizers that were being given. If you listen to the Minister of Agri, he sat in his office once they moved the fertilizers from the warehouses in Accra. Then he calculated that 5 bags of fertilizers, 1 bag of fertilizer has created 5 jobs. So that was the result for government in terms of the Planting for Food and Job. So if today government come back in their budget for 2019 and says that no, we are no longer going on that program, farmers are supposed to pay 50% and access the fertilizer, which is what the NDC, was doing in the past. So in a nutshell, government has abandoned the Planting for Food and Job program, and we should not talk about that program again. We now have, gone back to the National Fertilizer Subsidy Program. And so if government's attention is to give more fertilizer, and the NDC was doing that program for the general farmers, and for the cocoa sector, we're giving free fertilizers for farmers generally. And so many of the cocoa farmers were happy. I listened to the interviews that you played earlier on, and you realize that even getting the agric officers to visit farms of cocoa farmers to measure them, they are able to identify some of the problems that exist on their farms and are able to communicate so that Cocoa Board will come up with policies that will address them. Now, the fertilizers are not given to the farmers freely, and so no officer goes to the farms to measure the farm and to know the situation on the farms. You need to have 80 Ghana cedis to buy one bag of fertilizer. Farmers did not patronize it. And this was a caution that was given by the minority in their press conference somewhere in the Western region. Government did not listen. Now, these fertilizers have been left in the warehouses. They have expired, and they are still, being kept in the warehouses. The agents that were supposed to take the fertilizers from government have already taken their commission. And so government has lost in terms of paying commission to these agents. And the fertilizers which were originally not to have been sold to farmers have now expired. So who's going to pay for that cost? And this is a clear case of, causing financial loss to the state, because we use farmers' money to purchase these fertilizers, cocoa fertilizers, to be given for free to farmers. And we did not heed to that. We have lost in that area. We are not investing in cocoa roads. 2017 government did not commit a dime to the continuation of the cocoa roads that were started by the previous administration. In 2018, there was nothing in the budget. In 2019, zero allocation to cocoa roads. You hear about the Sino hydro project and some of the roads that they say they are going to invest in. None of those roads link the cities to the cocoa farming communities. So we are going to see zero investment in that sector again. The producer price of cocoa has not been increased for 3 consecutive years. I have not witnessed that before in this country. Even in the era where cocoa farms were, were on fire, when everybody's attention, we should, try and recultivate cocoa and all of that. Government's attention in terms of increasing the producer price for cocoa was high on government agenda. This government seems not to be interested in that. And now the cocoa syndicated loan, which is now the new problem for cocoa farmers, which has been sourced. Government has received the money, and government is not paying these cocoa buying companies in order that they can also buy the produce from farmers. We started the main crop season in October. October is gone. November is gone. We are almost in the middle of December, and not one Ghana cedi has been released to even PBC, which is supposed to act on behalf of Cocoa Board. And as we speak today, PBC is raising a loan of about 200 million Ghana cedis from the rural banks at a cost of 21% per annum. When we have accessed cocoa syndicated loan at a lower rate, where is that money? And farmers are now using their produce as collateral to take loans from cocoa clerks and all of that at a higher, interest rate. If you go to the communities and you hear the stories that I went for 200 Ghana cedis from a cocoa clerk and I'm going to pay 400 Ghana cedi in 2 months. And if you don't pay at the end of the 2 months, the rate keeps on, going up. So the lip service is becoming too much. The focus on slogans is becoming too much. Government must actualize the talk. Almost every sector is collapsing in this country. The construction is gone. Banking is almost dead. And those that even exist on panic, basis. Once the construction was gone, because government is owing so much to contractors who are also owing the banks. So once government refuses to pay contractors, they don't also get to honor their loan obligations with the banks. So the banks will collapse. The construction is gone. So we're expecting that, knowing that the agri sector is very critical to government was going to focus and put much more investment in the agri sector, so that whilst these sectors are going down, people can still drift to agriculture and get benefit, and also get some benefit for the country. And I understood it when government packed a whole army in the agri ministry. This is the first time we have a sector minister in charge of agri. We have 3 deputies at that ministry, one in charge of crops, one in charge of livestock, and the other in charge of cocoa. And then the president saw the need to have another minister of state at the Flagstaff House in charge of agriculture. These guys go to the ministry. They also, acknowledged and appreciated the work that needs to be done at the ministry. They began to have special assistants and special coordinators for all the programs. You can imagine having an executive director in charge of planting for food and job. When we have a director in charge of crops at the ministry, we still have an executive director. We have special consultant for communication. We have special assistant to the minister. We have secretary to the minister. All of these gang are the ministry. And yet, you do not see the results in terms of investment that government is putting in the sector. So what is the need in keeping those guys at the ministry and at the Flagstaff House when we are not seeing the returns in terms of government's own reportage in various budgets? If you read the 2017 budget, government reported in the 2018 budget, government reported that for the 2016-2017 cocoa season, which is what the NDC bequeathed the NPP government, we were able to produce about 969,000 metric tons of cocoa, which features so much in the 2016-2017 cocoa season. Now, in the 2017-2018 cocoa season, production came down to 904,000 metric tons in 2017-2018. In 2018-2019, we are projecting that production will still come down to 900,000 metric tons. So what was the benefit that we got from this artificial pollination, the hand pollination they talk about? They engage about 30,000 young people who were supposed to be plucking the flowers and putting them on other cocoa trees so that we would have more yields, paying them 500 Ghana cedis a month for 5 months. And we did not see the yields. Why? Because many of the investments that government is directing to the agri sector are being spent on administrative expenses. It is not getting to the farmer. So if you are not doing the cocoa routes, if you are selling fertilizers to cocoa farmers, if you are not increasing the producer price for cocoa, how do you expect the farmer to pay more attention to his cocoa trees and get more yield for you? You are rather increasing budgetary allocations to cocoa board at the headquarters, engaging more deputy CEOs from 2016-2017 cocoa season to what we have in 2018-2019, government has increased allocation, budgetary allocation to the cocoa board headquarters by over 60%. And the farmer gets zero, returns. How do you expect the sector to grow? And when these fertilizers, which are even supposed to be given to farmers at a lower subsidized, rate, get into the hands of NPP executives, they smuggle them out of the country and get their own monies and all that. And these are not things that I am talking about. People in the sector, including DCs and ministers of this same administration, have had cause to complain that NPP executives are smuggling these farmers. So when the minister sits in his office, as I mentioned earlier, and he sees that they are loading the fertilizers, and he starts to calculate the number of jobs that are being created. One fertilizer, then he says 5 jobs. Another fertilizer, 10 jobs. These fertilizers do not get to the farms in this country. They get into the hands of NPP executives, they smuggle them, make their monies, and yet we say that we have created jobs. And so I agree with the former president, His Excellency John Mahama, that government must begin to lessen the talk and actually invest in the agri sector so that we can see more, people engaging in the sector, which will give us income as a country, and also get produce for the one district, one factory that we have been hearing about. If you cannot increase the yields in our farm and be sure of getting the pineapple factory running, you can run to Everpure, company limited, and say that this is one district, one factory, a company that has existed since 2008. And so that, I believe, should be the focus for this government, so that farmers can get their benefits out of it. And then young people who are also interested in engaging in farming would know that they can also engage in it and even do their regular, employment activities and still venture into agri sector. I listened to the Minister of State in charge of agri at the presidency yesterday when he was giving the profile of the national best farmer. And he mentioned that this gentleman, this national best farmer, has as many as 130 something, persons engaged on his farm. About 50 of them are permanent, employees. And I said, look, if every farm is employing in that manner, if government can be running to some existing factories, so to speak, that employs 20, 25 people painting the walls and saying that this is one district, one factory. And we have farmers that engages more than 100 people. Then it tells you that this is a sector that we must focus attention on, and to be able to get maximum returns from it. So now everybody, the fishermen are crying, and I think that you should also engage with fishermen as well. You have gone to the cocoa farmers. You should go to the coastal areas and speak to them, how the premix are coming, how they are getting outboard motors. They are not there. And I remember in 2015, when His Excellency, the former president, engaged in giving outboard motors to fishermen, the NPP were complaining, saying that, this is a vote buying scheme, how to get people to vote for the president. They did not know that these are equipment that will aid the farmers in the fishermen in getting to the sea and also getting something so that they can also benefit from the sector. Premix is no longer going. They say that it has become like a cocoa business. Today, Premix is not going. You have the minister engaging his cousin, and you cannot blame her because the president himself is engaged in that, venture of engaging family and friends and all of that. But they should do the work. They should get the premix to the farmers. It is not getting to the people at the coastal areas, and they are complaining. And government seems not to listen to these concerns. It is something that government must pay attention to. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak on these matters.
Thank you very much, ALHAJI N, opening the discussion on the Farmers' Day. And also, we're talking about the agri sector. If you just join us, you're listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows, ALHAJI N ALHAJIiii. We are live on PAB MCGH on Facebook. Let me share with you a couple of comments that's coming from some of you, those of you who are viewing us on PAB MCGH. And this one comes from Abubakar Salihu. Says that our president is old enough to get out of lies because he is now a liar. He should remember he swore to tell Ghanaians many promises. All what he told Ghanaians was out of context. And this one from Sampia Kumbelim says, I'm not sure that was the original speech of the president. Almost everything he said was not true. And this one, Azure Imoru Mohammed says, good morning, Senator. We heard the president was supposed to commission a vegetable farm as Planting for Food and Jobs initiative opposite B5 Steel in Tamale, but we did not see him. The MPP always wants to say they are first to do everything in this country. God save us. And this one coming from, let me get some of those messages. And good morning. This is Bis Makoka, testing from Nungwa. There is the developing incidents from the campus of Gimpa. Students who make payments of fees after the registration period. I'm unsure what this whole one is about. Ayu Farouk in Tamale says, good morning to you and to your panelists. Yes, to acquire drones now is a misplaced priority. Our deprived areas still need roads, electricity, schools, ambulances, and no drones for now. MPP and Nanado government are looters indeed. And Ibrahim Chimba says, Sana, good morning and good morning to your panelists. What is this government in Nanado saying? That Planting for Food and Job has brought enough food crops into the system. They should bow down their heads in shame. I'm asking, is it the first time we have had abundant agricultural produce in this country? They should just give us a break. Nanado must go. He's a liar and a failure. Ibrahim Chambers in Kaswa said that. Nuhu Ndebila in Kumasi says, Honorable Abambagwin is talking too much. Look, as an elder in the NDC fraternity, I wish he would somewhat restrain himself from responding to all dissenting comments about or against him. Tolerance is part of our political life as members of the NDC. Once you decide to do politics in Ghana, you cease to be a private person. The trick is that such persons must strive to develop a big heart to accept all criticisms, positive or negative, in good faith. As for me, Honorable Abambagwin has not handled his PR well at all. Let his advisors and handlers tell him that unless he wishes to end his political career after the NDC flag bearership contest, common sense should tell him that all his bitterness, unguarded and abusive utterances shall come back to hurt him big time and soon. I wish him and all his other compatriots in the contest well, and may the best candidate for the good of the NDC party be elected by our descending delegates. That is on our second topic. Right now we are talking about Greek, and this one from Teacher Constitution. Wia Mwase says we should all rally behind Nanado and his MPP government because they have good policies for this country. Happy Farmers' Day to all farmers in Ghana, especially Wia Mwase farmers. Let's move to Mr. Wilson. Good morning.
Good morning, Senna. Hope you are doing well.
By God's grace.
Let me quickly say good morning to our listeners and our viewers. And a special one to my uncle Kwesi, my brother Bruja, one of the young guys that I admire so much. And I was happy when during the NDC contest it came out clearly that some of the young ones who have been through his hands are taking up positions. And for me, I think that in this world, the joy should be seeing people who have passed through your hands going beyond what you've been able to achieve. And so I commend him, and I commend all those that even admitted publicly that they've learned so much from him, you know. Let me again, yesterday I had the opportunity of doing that, but let me again congratulate all farmers. Indeed, we celebrate them. And I'll quickly want to share with the president in one of the sentences he made yesterday, that just as we keep saying, if you can read, thank a teacher, it is important for us all to also say that if you wake up and you've eaten, you should thank a farmer, you should thank a fisherman. These are individuals who really hold us, and we cannot really do without them. And so it is appropriate that we commend them, and it is appropriate that we celebrate them as we've institutionalized it. If you look at Ghana's statistics, it tells us clearly that about 60% or so of Ghanaians are involved in the agric sector. And that makes it very key, and that makes it very important. It tells you clearly that indeed we are a country that, or we have a sector, which is the agric sector, that undoubtedly absorbs most of our working group or workforce in this country. If the agric sector collapses, we can imagine the number of individuals that will go unemployed. And so it is really one key sector that we need as a nation to do everything possible to improve it consciously, consistently, persistently. Let us see how we can improve that sector, because it is a sector that is very key and it is very, very important. Every year we've decided to celebrate them. And I keep asking myself, aside recognizing them and letting them know that we appreciate what they do, is there any other reason for which we keep appreciating them? This is about I think this is the 36th edition. And so if we should have, a retrospective looking, can we acknowledge, or can we say, pinpoint to something and say that throughout these 36 times that we've celebrated our agric sectors and our farmers, has this celebration, aside recognizing their work and their efforts, has this celebration really brought anything that is justifies why we should continue to celebrate them? I was actually trying to find out, but one thing that came out clearly is that, well, if for nothing at all, the fact that we recognize them, they have a feel that we are recognizing them every year, that alone is a good incentive and a motivation for them to go and then continue to do the good work that they are doing for us. But in moving on, there are one or two issues I want to concentrate on with regards to the agric sector and with regards to the celebration. I am not very sure. I'm not very sure whether this is the first time or it's something that keeps coming on. We know that every year we are supposed to celebrate, or we do celebrate our farmers, and that is the first Friday of every December in each year. Prior to this celebration, yesterday's celebration, there was a function where the Vice President launched the celebration. And it took me aback a bit. I was wondering whether this has been the norm, something that is not new, something that we've been doing over and over. Do we need a separate platform to officially launch it before the day comes and then we celebrate it. I was struggling to understand, because you see, my issue has to do with the launching. Whatever transpired, it's added some cost to the state on the day of the launch. And so why do we spend money to launch an event which has become part of us, an event that is always going to happen? It is just like launching the 4-year periodic general elections that we've been having. And then someone decided, okay, 2020 election, we are going to launch the 2020 election before the day of election. Or it is just like the 6th March celebration that we've been having. And then out of the blues, someone comes, uses the taxpayers' money, organizes a ceremony, and says that we are launching next year's independence celebration. I was finding it difficult, and I'm still finding it difficult to appreciate the rationale behind that ceremony that took place prior to yesterday. Because if for nothing at all, we were made to believe that we need to protect the public purse. And that is what we are told, or the promise that was given to us prior to the 2016 election, that we are going to protect the public purse. I am still struggling to appreciate how a launch of something that has become part of us will constitute the protection of public purse. The other thing that came up, which I have also been trying to understand, is that earlier on, before yesterday, the Agric Minister went to Parliament. And when he got there, in his communication to the parliamentarians, he made it known that we don't have money for yesterday's celebration. And going further or into detail, he said that the money that has been allocated for yesterday's celebration, which is 2 million Ghana cedi, wasn't enough. And that is what he means by we don't have money. And so we need to have additional money before the celebration could take place. I think that it is time for us to start asking for breakdowns of how the taxpayers' money is spent and how we actually use the taxpayers' money. 2 million Ghana cedi for a celebration, and we are told that it is not enough. Okay, so if it is not enough, were we able to raise an additional funds to ensure that yesterday's ceremony could take place? If we were, how much was raised? Where did those monies come from? So these are some of the issues surrounding yesterday's celebration that I'm hoping and I'm believing that we'll have some, it will be an issue for us all as a nation to be discussing, so that we can have a solution to it. 2 million Ghana cedi for a one-day celebration, it is not enough. What then was the total budget that was used yesterday? And that gap, that difference between the 2 million and the amount that was used yesterday, the amount that was added to it for yesterday's event to take place, where was that money coming from, or where did it come from? And how are we sure that wherever that money came from is not going to deprive others for the original purpose for which that money would have been used for? It is something that keeps coming, and I think we need to look at it. But the major one which needs some attention also has to do with the theme for yesterday's celebration. It says agriculture, moving Ghana beyond aid. That was the theme. And if you follow keenly the activities of this government, it is very clear that in some few months past, it has become the president's mantra. It has become his easiest conversation and sentence. He keeps saying that Ghana beyond aid, Ghana beyond aid, Ghana beyond aid. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any strategic, or there hasn't been any practical policies that he has come out with to convince all of us as to the clear way forward towards this Ghana Beyond Aid song that he keeps singing, you know. But I was thinking that yesterday would have been a good opportunity for him to have told us. Now he says agric is the key to move Ghana beyond the aid. And I said that agric takes care of about 60% of our population with regards to employment. And so if indeed we want to use agric, for me it is a key and we can actually use it, okay? Because the agric sector plays so many roles. Look, if we have healthy food to eat, it will reduce the rate at which we fall sick. If it reduces the rate at which we fall sick, it will reduce the rate at which we go to hospital. If it reduces the rate at which we go to hospital, those who would have otherwise used their own money to pay for hospital bills can now use the money for something else. Okay, those who were going to depend on the national health insurance now will not depend on it, and so that burden on the government or the state would have reduced, and many more practical examples. And so the agric sector is very key. And when the president or the ministry came out and said that we are going to use agric as a tool to move Ghana beyond aid, personally I was happy, because I believe that is one key sector we can tap into, and we can quickly move out of this Ghana Beyond Aid. We can implement it. But unfortunately, when the president threw out his speech, I did not really hear any clear policy, any clear way. I didn't hear him mentioning anything specific, saying that using agric, this and that, this and that, this and that are the things that are going to take place, and we are going to use and we are going to do under my government, for which we will be moving this country beyond aid. There was nothing like that. I did not hear. I listened to him. I did not hear any of those things, saying it. So I got a bit disappointed, and I'm like, well, it is also possible that this president, will not stop proving me wrong. I have always said that this is a government where all they are interested in are just coming out, putting words together and speaking the Queen's language, and that is all. They want to just speak any English word, and they want to just come out with themes and come out with slogans, and that is all they think it takes to lead this country. But I feel so disappointed throughout yesterday's celebration that the team itself was not, the president did not speak much to the team. I'm wondering how that team came up, if indeed they didn't, or they were not committed to that team. The other thing, which is an issue which we need to also look at as we celebrated yesterday's agric or the farmers, is this issue of planting for food. And again, it is one key thing the president and this government seems to be championing. I must admit that 2 or 3 days ago, I followed a documentary, and it was done in Bron Ahafo, where reports from the traders indicated that there is some bumper harvests in that community, okay? Unfortunately, what came out was that, look, even though we've been able to have much produce this year or this season, we are not getting people to buy them. And so they are all going bad and they are getting rotten. And so, even though we are talking of planting for food, and some sectors or some communities are communicating to us that it is becoming successful, the unfortunate thing is that it is we've achieved one, but we are losing what we've achieved through another means, and that is the products are now in abundance. We are not getting people to buy, and because we are not getting people to buy, the things are going waste. And I think that that is not the best way to go as a nation. The other thing again with the planting for food is that, look, the policies surrounding the planting for food, it is very clear that even though the concepts may be good, it is very clear that majority of the beneficiaries are not really the farmers who are supposed to benefit. I was listening to a program where the Ashanti regional chairman of the MPP was interviewed, and then he wasn't even the one interviewed. One of the directors at the office of this planting for food secretariat was interviewed, and then he made reference to the Ashanti regional chairman of the MPP and said that this man has gone to acquire a number of acre, and the man is going to engage in this particular produce and products, agri products, and this man has come to us and we've given him this quantity of seeds. Now, when this report came, and this man was saying it with all the happiness and all the boldness, making reference to the fact that this is one of the success stories. But when he said it, the only thing that came into my mind was this: how many of my relatives in my village who are engaged in agricultural activities, and they didn't start when this government came into office? They've been in that business from time immemorial. How many of them have been able to assess the policies and the framework and the activities that is going on at the Secretariat of Planting for Food? It is very clear that in all these policies, the larger beneficiaries are the party faithfuls of the ruling government and the foot soldiers of the ruling government. So at the end of the day, even though we've come out with a policy intending to help and assist true farmers, we are rather ensuring that we have these policies, we have these avenues, and we are rather enriching party followers who do not have any idea. They don't even know anything about farming. But because they belong to the party, and because they belong to the government, and because there's an avenue, they quickly decide that, okay, let me put on the farming attire so that I can assess what is coming from the government. When we do this, we end up as a nation not moving on, because those individuals that genuinely need to benefit, we are depriving them. And I think it is something we need to look at. We need to really, really look at it very well. Now, with all these issues said, I will want to look at the agri sector as it is currently and as it is presently, what is happening now. There has been an issue of modernizing our agricultural activities, with particular reference to farming and, of course, even fishing. Broja said earlier on, we are still celebrating and recognizing farmers, and the prizes and the tools being given them in a form of recognizing them are still the cutlasses that are and has been used for the past only God knows years. And yet we want to modernize agri in this country. We are talking of modernization of agri, and irrigation is becoming an issue. Majority of farmers are still relying on the beneficial or benevolent act of nature, so that if it doesn't rain at a particular season, the farmers go complaining. And yet, for the past 36 years, we've been recognizing and celebrating farmers in this country. I have said that, looking at the statistics and the number of individuals that are into the agricultural activities in this country, if we are having our policies and our foundations right, we should have been able to confidently not just feeding ourselves totally, but we should have been able to be feeding so many number of countries across the African continent. But unfortunately, that is not what is happening. This morning, I have alluded to the fact that I've heard some stories going around, some documentary going around, where individuals in some communities are saying that they have recorded a bumper harvest. But they quickly add that the products are going waste. How many storage facilities do we have as a nation? Such that within a particular period, products come or produce comes, and then it vanishes. We have to wait till the next year when the season comes again before we can get it. Every now and then I keep making reference to this big mangoes where when you're on your way to Dodowa, they sell on the streets there. They are one of the fruits that I love so much. But I always have to go through the troubles of waiting for a particular season before I can get some to buy. And not only myself, that is what is happening by a lot of people. What is happening to the storage facilities? That as a nation we will not be able to have modern storage facilities so that we can buy from the farmers, and then we can then store them as a nation, keep them, sell them to the citizens, and even export. And yet all we do is to just go around every year celebrating, acknowledging farmers. I think 36 years on, we should be able to move the bar from just celebrating them by recognizing them to celebrating them because we've been able to make their living a very worthwhile and a very comfortable one for them. We need to look at that. The other thing has to do with our inability to package the agric sector so that particularly the young ones will be able to confidently get into it. I have friends who goes to the universities and other tertiary institutions. They go and learn agric and then agric related courses, and they come out and they are all looking for a white collar job. They are all looking for offices to sit in. But if we've been able to repackage our agric sector very well, you go to places like South Africa, you go to places like Kigali and the rest, and you realize that their agric sector has been repackaged in a very attractive way, such that you visit a farm in South Africa and you'll be amazed. This is a well-structured institution, and it is inviting graduates and younger ones to quickly come in and then put to bear the things they've gone to learn in school. But we are not doing so here. We are not doing so because we as a nation have not been able to consciously find a way of rebranding and repackaging, bringing it to the modernized status where we'll be able to attract, young ones into it. Aside the rebranding, it's even the issue of ensuring that we have a fair environment and a good and accessible environment where individual young ones who even want to go into the agric sector, not even those who want to go into, but even those who are in it, will be able to expand. So now it is very ironical that we have a country where we've created a whole bank, and the bank is supposed to take care of the farmers and individuals in the agric sector, help them with loans, assist them, and all that. And we are talking about of ADB, Agric Development Bank. It's recently I got to know that if you take ADB's accounts and you look at the amount of money they allocated to farmers in terms of loans, where individuals were able to access so they can go into farming activities, it is less than the amount of money that Barclays Bank, a foreign bank, has over the past been giving to our farmers in a form of loan. For me, it brings out some challenges. Because at least I know that ADB is a state bank, a state-owned bank. And I know that ADB is, we use the taxpayers' money to cushion them. And their basic duty, or their original duty, they are not able to meet it, such that in this country as we speak, a foreign bank is able to meet the basic duty of ADB beyond ADB meeting its own or implementing its own basic duty. It brings about a whole lot of issue that we need to look at. Accessibility to even land to farm on, if we want to do that. The state should be able to identify some lands, go into negotiations with the landowners, be it the local authorities, the chiefs, the family heads, and all that. Let the state acquire certain lands and make them available to individuals who want to go into farming activities. For me, I think that we should come back and bring on board these state farms that we used to have some years back. And we will then be able, if the state takes up that initiative, we will then be able to ensure that we have some form of modernization and some form of repackaging the farming activities in this country. There's one thing which keep bothering me, is that, and that is, after the agric activities are taking place, after we have harvested and all that, we still live in a country where I wouldn't want to give a figure because I don't have the facts here, but clearly we are a country where we engage so much in raw materials other than adding value to most of the things that we produce. And I think it is something that we need to look at. If we have avenues where we are moving from raw material production to value-added production, where a farmer goes in and is able to produce more in a particular season, that farmer will not be crying that he's not getting people to buy and the things are going waste. Because we have an avenue where we can add value to the things that we produce, we will be able to take the things from them, add value to it. At the end of the day, they will be making money. At the end of the day, we will also be making money as a state. But as we speak now, 36 years on, since we started recognizing and celebrating our farmers, we've not done so much with regards to adding value to the things that are being produced. And I think it is not fair. It is not the best. Indeed, yesterday, someone said something which I share with him, that all things being equal, the fact that a farmer goes in to plant yam and take the period with which the yam will be ready for harvesting, and the farmer goes through all this process and the period, takes the yield from the ground, and at the end of the day, because there's a bumper harvest, he has to reduce the price and sell it at 1 cedi, 2 cedi, 3 cedi. That 1 cedi, 2 cedi, 3 cedi, the farmer cannot live on it. But hey, the farmer has no option than to sell it at a giveaway price, simply because to him that is far better than keeping it for it to get rotten. But if as a state we've been able to put measures in place so that we move from just raw material production to value adding stage, I am sure the farmer goes for a bumper harvest, and the farmer will not be forced to sell it at a giveaway price. Because the farmer also has some people that depends on him. The farmer also has some responsibilities. And so if you go to a farmhouse and you are buying produce at 1 cedi, 2 cedi, and it is because the farmer has no option than to give it out that way, because the farmer is scared that it will get waste, it will go waste, then I don't think we are doing any good to our farmers. And that is not one of the good ways we can encourage farming activity. So these are some of the things that we need to be looking at, as a nation. The very last one I will want to talk about has to do with the last one has to do with, now we've talked about rebranding the agri sector. We've talked about adding value to the produce that we come out with. The last one for me, which is very key, is to look at the welfare scheme or the welfare system of our farmers. How do we ensure that our farmers, particularly the cocoa farmers, those that we have secured prices for, we can start with them? Isn't it possible, and isn't it time for us as a nation to have some pension schemes for our cocoa farmers? We start with the cocoa farmers, and then we expand it to the various departments, and then, gradually we'll end up having all our farmers on a particular scheme. Isn't it possible we can do that? And in doing that, we can find a way of letting them contribute to the SNIT. We can also find a way of, as I said, improving all the things that I've said earlier on, so that they can have money in their pockets. Because when they have money in their pockets, their welfare will be taken care of automatically. So pension as a nation, I think it is time for us to be looking at that. And then aside pension, we should also be looking at how we can add value to the raw materials, so that it will end up adding some additional money into the pockets of the farmers. And when they have some money in their pockets, it is very clear that their welfare will improve. I mean, if you go to this cocoa and then the farming communities, and you look at the troubles our farmers go through, they wake up at dawn and all the work that they do, because it is not so much modernized, they still use the old system where they have to exert so much energy. They go through all these things, and then at the end of the day, a farmer a whole month cannot even boast of 100 Ghana cedi. It is disheartening, and I think as a nation, we should just start moving away from this every year celebration where we are even told that 2 million Ghana cedi is not enough for the celebration, to a stage where we will really appreciate them and let them feel that, yes, we are individuals that are comfortable in Ghana, because the nation has put measures in place for us to really have some significant benefits as far as our activities as farmers, as fishermen, and what have you are concerned.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. And a couple more of your messages before I come to Professor Ninoy Dawona. Walali Amatewe on Facebook says, on Ghana, when acquisition of drones is a waste of taxpayers' money, MPP give us a break. And Wilton Ghana says, good morning, Senna, and your able panelists. I am Enam. So yesterday, Kim Promise was praising his government of being better than the previous government. Does he listen to the ordinary Ghanaian at all? So I don't think so, because if he does, he would have come back to tell Ghanaians about the hardship in the country. It's a pity. 2020, we go show King Promise. And this one is from Ebenezer Binche. It says, haha, Nanado is making fun of all of Ghanaians, thinking everything is well. Meanwhile, ordinary Ghanaians are suffering, crying every day, complaining about the economy. Hardship still. He is pretending la. He sent this from Aveime in the Volta region. And this one from Teacher Constitution, we almost see again. He says the NDC will be in opposition forever because they like propaganda too much. Let's go to WhatsApp and share a couple more of the messages we are getting from our number. So you can join us, send us a message through WhatsApp. The number is 0233-9959, 0233-9959. If you want to view us on Facebook, we're on PAP MCGH. If you're watching us, you can just share your thoughts with us on the topics we are discussing. Williams in Koforidua says, Nanado's speechwriters are doing him a profound disservice. Listening to the president, I thought I was listening to Abronya DCA. Anytime the MPP wants to fleece Ghanaians, they resort to pie-in-sky ideas, like using drones to ferry blood to far-flung areas of the country. We are waiting with bated breath for 2020 to vote out this wishy-washy, namby-pamby, pusillanimous and Lampalooza of incompetence government. That's very very impressive. And peace be unto you, or God bless all farmers and their family for the good work they are doing for Mother Ghana. We thank them all. We are pleading with the government to provide them with their heart desires so that they will have the eagerness to work more and more for us. And as far as to what's their problem at all, they know down within themselves that they will lose, but yet still they are forcing themselves. Excuse me to say, is our children could be that the president made them to stand in the sun like that, or is it by force at all to get funds from the society? The leaders should please talk a lot about it, because it's really disturbing we parents. That's Doris from Teshi putting 3 topics together. And this one says, please, good morning, comrades. The hand pollination, artificial pollination that was introduced by Nana Addo government will not contribute to the yield of cocoa production, simply because the hand pollinators that were employed did not get enough training as to how the pollination will be done properly. Secondly, there was no proper supervision. And you didn't add your name. This one says, hi, Radio Gold. The way the president, Nana Akufo-Addo, is going with his government indicates danger for Ghana. The way he removed the electoral commissioner, Mrs. Charlotte Osei, the way he is dividing the regions without respecting the concerns of the paramount chiefs in the affected regions, especially in the Volta region, etc. The way he has put his family and friends in sensitive positions in the country is indicating something bad for Ghana. Ghanaians who have the nation at heart must wake up to advice now before everything is destroyed. We speak different languages, but we are one people in a country called Ghana. We must stay united. That's from Kweku in Accra. And this one, good morning. This is Bismarck Coca testing from Nungwa. He sent, I think he sent this one to Facebook too. Something that we are not even coming to. And I'm Mubarak Branch Secretary Nima. Mr. Sana, it's very clear that the NPP has failed and they are continuously failing. So it's up to we, the NDC, to prepare ourselves well to take over the mantle from the NPP. So I am proposing to our elders to set up special fund purposely for the grassroots, and we can do this through mobile telecom subscription contribution. And if each NDC member is to contribute 20 pesos daily through the airtime recharge cards we recharge daily, I have the belief it to help to organize very strong grounds for our dear party. And if they find it difficult for them to do, then they should pave the way for us, the grassroots, and inshallah we will deliver. Lincoln Nakwetiman says, candidate Nana Addo in opposition described the then President Mahama's projects as Photoshop. Today, Nana Addo is commissioning those projects and taking credit. God is the best judge. And A.U. Farouk in Tamale says, good morning to you and your panelists. I say a big happy Farmers' Day celebration to our noble farmers across the country and to President Nana Addo. He should stop provoking us. Who will give him more than 1 million votes? Ghanaians are not having short memories of his government, incompetence of managing the economy. And then this one finally from Ofosu says, Radio Gold, this government is the worst in the Fourth Republic. Cocoa farmers cannot be paid. They have to sell cocoa on credit. Fertilizer is sold at 80 cedis instead of giving it out for free. Fertilizer is left in warehouse to expire because of 80 cedis. Never before has Ghana experienced this. Nanani hardship ni. That's from Ofosu, and that should bring in Professor Nino Idowona. Prof.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning. I think this topic was well treated yesterday. I don't know, Comrade Wilson was one of the anchors. And so much was said. For me, the most gratifying aspect of yesterday's show and the soundbite that you played was listening to the practitioners. And indeed, you did a good service for whoever produced the program, had a foresight and wisdom to talk to those who are the true witnesses. So any speech by anybody with, as usual, political coloration and the vehemence with which the president tried to compare and contrast that we have hit high production rates since 2011. And I say, oh, gee, those of us not in the NDC, MPP fraternity, it's the same do me, I do you type of politics that we've witnessed since 1992. And it never seems to cease. So when I was coming, I think all my excitement and enthusiasm and what I intended to present, for me, I'll say if my time could be allocated to Mr. Ado and the farmers that you interviewed, they sum it all. You know, and I can't recap better than what you played. But if somebody has 68 acres of cocoa farm, in the real average land size or farm size, he ranks amongst the top.
Sure.
Yeah. And then he tells you, we take cocoa to the produce buying agency spot and we are not paid on time. You heard him.
Yeah.
And this is a commodity that had been with us since the 1800s. And we have a finance ministry placing tag on 89 pesos mineral water bottle to show you how governments are extracting money from us. Perhaps you can even squeeze water out of stone. But then those who produce, for which we support our huge bureaucracy across all sectors, educational sector, main government, etc., and which provide us with the resources for us to get our perks and privileges with our emolument. You heard our story. You heard the story. Even fertilizer, if it's not fertilizer, what can you produce? They were telling you. They were also telling you about freeze in the price of cocoa. And government says, and they all, you see, you heard them pathetically, Kwesi, we are pleading with government. We are pleading. Africa, intelligentsia, a tragedy. You don't have this anywhere. No wonder we are where we are. And any time these issues come up, you have goose pimples, and you played or normal soundbite for this or the background for sick tune for this program in Nkrumah. It's a tragedy. Now, we have still been exporting the raw beans. We pride ourselves as having the premium cocoa. It's not premium chocolate or premium, and the number of products, byproducts that you can get from cocoa, from alcoholic beverages to cosmetics, etc., pharmaceuticals. We are not priding ourselves in that. And yesterday, I think when I spoke to those who anchored the program, I said, if you go to the shops or talk to, just ask the price and compare the last 3, 4, 5 years, whether Golden Tree chocolate, you've had any decrease in price or any freeze in price. You're selling a small bar less than this MyFi or what you call it for about 5 cedis. And how much are you paying for a 100 kilogram bag of cocoa? And you say you've frozen the price. Meanwhile, tax levels have increased over the last 3, 4, 5 years or so. And so here we are. When you go to Cocoa Boss site on the net, they will give you the haulage price for cutting the raw beans from Tema to ports in Europe and ports in North America. And I can bet you it is cheaper than to transport cocoa from Seshuya also to Takrady or to Tema. The colonial rail track that we said the colonial masters just didn't access every part of the country, but at least they had even some common sense and wisdom. Because apart from water transport, the cheapest means of surface or land transport is rail. You understand? I was a small boy with my late grandfather at Mangwase, then later on in Sawam. You will find goods train will come late night when all passenger trains have come to their stations for the following day. 22, 25, 30 wagons carting cocoa timber to Tema. And those at the western end will tell you through Takwa, etc., to Takrady. Today, we use the most expensive form of transport, and they all contribute towards the cost of production. and the farmer at the tail end gets nothing. So imagine that you can save so much on just inland transport. And this small country, and you're talking about the southern half of Ghana, that is where you produce cocoa. The southern half of Ghana, perhaps not more than 400-500 kilometers from any production point to Takoradi or to Tema. And yet you can find articulator truck from Cape Coast cutting cocoa to Tema. Can you believe this? And so you add all this, and at the end of the day, the cocoa farmer earns nothing. We started Farmers Day in the 80s. And what was the rationale? Is every year Ghana acknowledges farmers and fisher folks' efforts for the following reasons: work hard to feed a growing population, providing raw materials to the nation's industries, and contributing to the nation's foreign exchange earnings. Farmers have done that. And we've acknowledged that it was useful thought to really initiate this event back in the 80s. And at least on the face of it, we can say it's brought consciousness, recognition, and awareness. And yesterday, if you were listening to the National Best Farmer, he was telling you about how he started on a small scale, winning district competitions through region and now national. And indeed, all the national farmers or district or regional farmers, or those who even vie for the number 1 position or number 2, number 3, they will tell you they are into mixed farming, if you call it that way. I mean, in a more non-technical manner. If it is crops, variety of crops, and almost invariably they also add what you may call animals, livestock, etc., poultry. And some have land sizes or farm sizes more than 200-300 acres. And so at least this National Day Farmers had really brought, farmers celebration had brought that consciousness or awareness on the side of the population, and those who were attracted into it and inspired into it, and for that matter, what they are getting out of it. But now let's look through what governments have done or have not done. At least there have been packages. I know from my technical viewpoint that if you talk of research extension farmers, there had been lots of programs, regional, global programs, championed by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and then our foremost research council, that is the National Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, with its affiliate. You know, the many institutes are agricultural related. So back in the 90s, PNDC, late 80s to 90s, the PNDC, NDC, we had a NAP, that's the National Agricultural Productivity Program, that provided support for capacity building, training agriculturists in our universities and other tertiary institutions, and then research into various aspects of agricultural activity. And successes were chalked. There are people who are now technocrats or scientists who were trained under that program. Many research activities also took place with the support of the NAP. It was succeeded by AXIP, that is Agricultural Subsector Improvement Program, in the 2000s. That also followed in that track. And just a year or so ago, we had a 10-year program that we call WAP, West African Agricultural Productivity Program. 2 phases, WAP 1, WAP 2, supported by the World Bank, AGRA, and they look at, so it was an ECOWAS sub-regional program, Senegal, Mali, looking at cereals, sorghum, millet, rice, and then Ghana, Nigeria, roots and tubers. And at least I had the benefit of participating in the program, and I can tell you the Crops Research Institute and other affiliate institutes of the CSIR did a wonderful job. They produce improved technologies in terms of some commodities like yam, sweet potato, cocoa yam, and then cassava. And we are now at the dissemination stage where farmers have adopted the technology and they can best tell you their story. So you look at over the years, and I'm talking about the 80s all through to the present. So you can see that successive governments have made the effort to increase agricultural production through various forms of interventions. And so when the president was talking, obviously he must also have added some initiatives to advance the frontiers of our production. But by and large, the problems exist. I have a friend, Kwesi knows him very well. He has a backyard poultry, and he was giving me the statistics. He's rearing 2,000 layers. You understand? And 500 will take 4 bags of feed. A feed is 100 cedis. So if he has 2,000, you're talking about on a day, 16 bags. That is 1,600. And it takes almost about 18 to 20 weeks for the birds to start laying. At the end of the cycle, if you don't take care, you will not even break even. You understand? So that's the background. As I indicated, for the cocoa and other agricultural produce, you find that even marketing is a problem. And we always say that, thank God, Cocoa Marketing Board or Cocoa Board. Other than that, we wouldn't have a cocoa industry. The glut that you're talking about is that this year we've had good rainfall. And for plantain, you realize that normally with April, you have rainstorm that devastates the, the plantain trees. This year, we didn't have to that extent. And the minor rains have also been quite unpredictable, but had been quite good this year. So you have vegetables a lot on the market. Plantain, like I told you yesterday, a bunch is selling in Accra for about 5 cedis. Is that desirable? You understand? So apart from cocoa, for all that we produce, the distribution or marketing is at the behest of our able market women, market queens, and our traders. If we find traders going all the way to Burkina to bring tomatoes, at times the vehicle will break down, the tomatoes will rot on the way, but they are still in it. Big losses, but they are still in it. You understand? We are just fortunate that for cereals and for some vegetables like pepper that you can dry, you have them all year round. Even if the prices fluctuate, at least you have them. It is the ingenuity of our farmers, aided by those in the distribution, the market men and market women, or market women rather first, and the market men, who will make sure that every time at least we have something at the market for us to take. And I said that in spite of the urban taste of fried rice and jollof and chicken and hamburgers, I think the majority of us, 70 to 80%, and if you take a typical urban center like Accra, what majority of us eat will be our kinky, our TZ, our wache. If you find even any nice food joint, our yam, our akple, and our ademe soup, etc. This, and where do we get all the ingredients from? Local. But then, if you talk of the other aspect of providing us with the necessary foreign exchange, there I think governments have failed. Look, go around any cold store as I talk today, now. All of them are open. There is not a single animal product that is from Ghana. Be it your mackerel, the tuna, the hard chicken, the soft chicken, the chicken wings and chicken legs, your cow feet, the intestines or offals or truffles that we call them, everything, turtles or whatever, everything is imported. Argentina, Brazil, Netherlands, etc. Everything. You see, everything, even tilapia, everything is imported. And so, what has been the news over the past couple of days? Christmas is coming. Guta or traders are crying. Government must do something about the dollar, because if it goes beyond 5 and we bring the items and we pay huge taxes or port duties, people cannot buy. This is a trend. So, farmers should produce hard labor And we export our cocoa, you can't pay them, but then you want dollars to bring in useless things like toothpick. Obroni wows, second-hand shoes, second-hand belts, and all manner of goods that you find by the roadside or at Okanshi or any market center in the country. These are the stark reality. The president on his tour of the region said he was commissioning or inspecting the Eastern Rail. Senna, you guys, I always tell you, move your program once a while with your TV camera and Patrick, and just start from Circle and walk along the rail track. You find it's an old colonial rail track. Some you find them like lizard or snake. The only thing is that the mud has been taken on the sleepers and they put hard. Somebody has got a contract to put stones, fresh stones. You get to them and then there's no rail at all. Move through there to Amasama and you find portions that are overgrown by weeds, never touched. And the rail only ends at Insawam. So what are we developing? Rail to compete with the trotros to Insawam? Or are we developing the rail to take cargo from Tema? And you go over the rail overpass after the Nungwa barrier, and the rail line ends there. The rail line ends there. So what is it for? The rail line was constructed to get to the harbor to cut heavy cargo. In the 70s and 80s, you hardly found any heavy truck along the motorway. But today, just on the Friday, in just attempt to move on the motorway, and you see the haulage. So over the years, if we were even to pick, say, oh, look, by the next Farmers' Day 2019, we'll have constructed the rail line to get as far as to Kofredria. Just follow the old colonial track. And from Kotoku, through Kede, across Huni Valley. And this extension from the eastern to the western, through the Chiansi Junction, the extension goes through production centers, cocoa, timber, and diamond, and all these minerals. The rail track is there, it's gone. If you go to Kotoku, buildings have sprung up all over the place. So we want to say, look, each successive Farmers' Day celebration, let us see that certain things are being done. If you look at the inputs or the variables which influence or affect production, what have we been able to do? These are the stark realities. So, well, I wouldn't like to flog the issue. For me, I would say, let's keep this precious tape of Mr. Ado and others. And each year, let's follow that track and interview other farmers, or go back to him and let him tell us whether all the concerns of 2018 had been addressed in 2019. And if you even expand the scope of your interview, you find out that it's the same song that runs everywhere. And if you were to get a program and get experts to come and analyze the whole production chain, let's only pick cocoa and find out whether we are engaged in the most economic form of production and whether we cannot really have greater earning based on reduced input cost to give farmers a better deal and for us to even earn enough income that farmers will have their fair share. As for industry, people used to bash Nkrumah that he placed industrialization ahead of agriculture. I didn't understand that. If you have an vegetable oil extraction factory at Esiama in the heart of coconut palm plantation, so you see today, 50 years later, what do we do with our cocoa? You find trucks going to the western region, central region, to bring coconut raw for us to just get 2 cedi 50 pesos in Accra. Is that what you use coconut for? And back in the 60s, Nkrumah put an oil, the Esiama oil mills to produce vegetable oil from at least copra. You get to western region, Norpalm is a Norwegian company that has bought this oil palm factory, and it is the same colonial factory that is producing enough palm oil for Unilever and others to produce their soap. This was by Nkrumah. And we cannot even maintain, so we had to sell. You understand? So if you have a Veime, and the many factories spread all over the country, today, are we producing? But we are still producing agricultural raw materials. But where do they end? Go to Abubushi now, and you find tomatoes rotting. Go to Abubushi, you find orange on the ground. You understand? So you are selling a bunch of plantain. Go to Senna this morning. You don't need to bargain. 5 cedis a bunch. Because the risk is that we have not produced or actually generated any form of processing to make at least plantain price even. So what do we have? It gets, the bunch comes, what Fufu cannot take, and Kelewele and Kakro and plantain cannot take for Aboboy, and evening delicacy, the rest rots off.
That's right.
And the farmer has no option in spite of the heavy cost of production because it's a perishable commodity. So the women go to the farm gate and say, this is how much I can offer. You can heap about 10 bunches and say, I'm a member of 50 cedi. Yeah. And you cannot cut plantain from maybe Bronga-Hafo or wherever you produce to Accra. So all that you do is to yield to the woman. And these are women also who invest so much, taking money from savings and loans, and they can go on a trip and the whole crates of tomatoes will get rotting, zero profit. And that's the way we've been surviving. So we can say Aiko to our farmers, notwithstanding all the labor, our fisher folks and the traders in the distribution and marketing chain. Those are the people we have to do our house for, and not officials at Cocoa Board or at any government agency that they know the problem, they are own kith and kin, but then I don't know whether technocrats themselves do what they must do and the political establishment does not listen, or the political establishment wants to play politics as usual. In the lifespan of a government, 4 years, and the current administration has been only for 2 years, they have 2 more years. You cannot achieve much for you to say that everything begins and ends with you. Let's recognize what has been done, and indeed, as I indicated, way back from the PNDC days to date, we've had programs and policies that have all in the small, if not even in a large scale, in a small manner, had advanced the frontiers of our agricultural production chain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. And a couple of messages on Facebook before I come to Mr. Pratt. Kim Farouk says, Senna, we're in the season where plantains are always in abundance. Moreover, plantains were not part of planting for food and jobs. I hope those who are jubilating and relating it to planting for food and jobs will not change their mouth when we enter the lean season and plantains become scarce on the market. He sent that from Kasua. Prekese Kwame says the media today are doing a great disservice to Mother Ghana. So John Mahama commissioned existing factory as 1D1F. The media would have been searching for the owners of the factories to run him down, just as when his projects were tagged as Photoshops. Meanwhile, Nanado highlighted the exact factories he will build in each district in MPP manifesto. So what has changed to that fallacy, hence deceiving Ghanaians of naming existing factory as his? My cousin has been working at this diaper factory behind the West Hills Mall for the past 2 years. So why then 1D1F? The B5 company in Tema has been there since 1998, but it is now 1D1F. Yet MPP keep hailing Nanado as their messiah. Lord have mercy. Professor Kwame Aristocrat, Ebra Asebu Kwamankese sent that one. Mr. Pratt.
Well, the idea of celebrating farmers on a special day is one which we all ought to welcome. And we ought to welcome that idea because our farmers play a very crucial role in our lives. The many things we do could not be possible without the tremendous sacrifices that our farmers make. We are able to provide protein for ourselves, we are able to eat well, and we are able to engage in the production of certain things like fruit juices and so on, all because our farmers work so hard to provide the raw materials that we need for our industries and the food that we eat in order to sustain ourselves. There are critical questions, however, which need to be asked in relation to the celebration of National Farmers' Day. Do we really celebrate farmers on that day? I've been to a few Farmers' Day celebrations, and at the end of the celebration, I left asking myself whether indeed we're celebrating the farmers or we're celebrating the politicians. Now you go to the National Farmers' Day, and the days is so full of politicians. The farmers are not on the days. You go to the National Farmers' Day, and most of the speeches are delivered by politicians and not the farmers. You go to the National Farmers' Day, and you observe the arrival of the farmers, and it's without pomp and pageantry. And you observe the arrival of the politicians, and it's all cheer and blast and so on. So one gets the impression that we have somehow missed the focus of the National Farmers' Day. In any case, one would have thought that the celebration of National Farmers' Day would focus attention on identifying the needs of our farmers, their problems, and so on, and use the National Farmers' Day to focus attention on these needs, on these problems. How do we solve them, and so on. Unfortunately, the National Farmers' Day has been reduced to one grand rally at which politicians boast about their achievements and enjoy the adulation of farmers and the crowd. If you look at farmers or agriculture in Ghana, about 3 or 4 problems appear to be key. And these are problems that we have identified perhaps over the last 50 years or more. One of the key problems that we have identified with agriculture is the fact that it does not appear to be attractive to young people. So you have a growing population that is still engaged in agriculture, and we are not doing a lot in order to attract younger people to agriculture. That's one key problem we have identified. The other problem we have identified is simply lack of credit to agriculture. And where credit is available, credit tends to be too expensive. I do not see how the celebration of the National Farmers' Day over the last more than 30 years has addressed this problem of the cost of credit and the availability of credit. One of the major problems also confronting agriculture in our country is simply post-harvest losses. You can produce all you want if you do not control post-harvest losses. You are not likely to improve the conditions of life and work of farmers and also the general conditions in the country and so on. So how do you plan a National Farmers' Day that addresses all of these felt needs of farmers, all of these problems that confront agriculture in Ghana? One, I would have loved to see the planning of the National Farmers' Day focusing attention on exposing the youth to agriculture. On that day, it should have been possible to mobilize students, to mobilize young people, to send them to farms and so on, to render voluntary service on farms and to interact with farmers. This is not new. This happened under the Achampon regime, where thousands of students were engaged in agriculture, and they were engaged in agriculture in order to boost the spirit of voluntarism and also to expose them to some of the realities of agriculture. It has not happened as yet, and I'm sad that we have not been able to do that yet. Now again, on National Farmers Day, it should have been possible for all of our research institutions which work relate to agriculture to have open days to showcase the scientific inventions and achievements that they have made over the years, to encourage farmers to know new methods of engaging in agriculture, of treating diseases, and so on. That can be part of the National Farmers Day, an open day for all of our scientific and research institutions which work relate to agriculture. That is possible. Now, over the years, I've followed the development of agriculture, and I've been told by the experts that in several instances, we actually don't need to produce more. I mean, if you take grains and legumes and so on, if we simply manage to deal with post-harvest losses, we will have enough for ourselves and also have enough for exports. As a matter of fact, when it comes to some grains, post-harvest losses amount to 40% of total production. So if you produce 10 baskets full of beans, for example, you lose 4 out of the 10 as a result of post-harvest losses. And I think it's important for us to focus some attention on how to reduce post-harvest losses. The Ghana Atomic Energy Commission appears to have made significant progress in the use of rehydration as a means of minimizing post-harvest losses when it comes to the cultivation of grains and so on. How do you replicate what the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission has been able to do using radiation to minimize post-harvest losses? How do you replicate that? How do you do that in such a way that the whole country benefits from the experiments they've conducted over the years and from the work that they do? That's a clear challenge. Now, sometime this year, I read a statement which had been made by the governor of the Bank of Ghana. And the governor of the Bank of Ghana had indicated that he was not happy about the rate of credit availability to agriculture. He had made the point that agriculture was not getting enough credit. Now, that would sound strange to anybody who has been observing or looking at the development alternatives that we have in this country. We established the Agricultural Development Bank because we thought that we needed a bank whose focus was purely agricultural development. A bank which will provide credit for agricultural enterprises at rates which normal universal banks could not do. We established the Bank for Housing and Construction to focus attention on construction and housing and so on. And then we established the National Investment Bank to fulfill a similar objective in the area of investment and so on. Now, over the years, all of our banks are becoming universal banks.
Yeah.
Over the years, all of our banks are moving away from the special focus that was provided for them in order to stimulate development in specific sectors of the national economy. So today, the Agricultural Development Bank is a universal bank. Indeed, the National Investment Bank is a universal bank. I'm not so sure about the fate of the Bank for Housing and Construction. It seems to me that it is dead and so on. Now, these are challenges that we ought to confront if we really want to celebrate the different sectors of our national economy. If we want to celebrate farmers, providing the best farmer with a 2-bedroom house, and a pickup truck and so on, does not in any way contribute to enhanced production of agricultural produce. You understand? If you want to celebrate farmers, inviting the president to give sometimes a long, winding speech to cacophonous applause and so on does not resolve the real problems that confront farmers and so on. And I think that we should begin to plan our Farmers' Day to, first of all, identify the specific problems that confront agriculture and to use the celebration of the day to find solutions to those specific problems which confront agriculture. Now, today, we are loudly celebrating a glut which has been occasioned by the abundance of plantain. Now, if you're familiar with plantain, plantain never gets wasted. When it's green, you can use it for the chips which have become so popular on the streets now. You can use it to pound fufu. You can eat it as ampese. You can do all kinds of things with green plantain. When it ripens, you can still use it for the chips on the streets. You can use it for kaklo and all the other things. You can eat it as red. You can do so many things with ripe plantain. When the plantain is deemed to be rotten, when it has ripened so much that it has become soft and the skin is becoming whitish and so on, there are other uses for it. You can use it for ofam, you can use it for tatale, you can use it for kaklo, you can use it for all kinds of things. You can actually grind or pound it and also store it in a deep freezer, and it never gets spoiled and so on. You understand? Now, given all of those uses of plantain, and you can actually eat ripe plantain also raw, you understand, like banana and so on. Now, given all of this, what do we have to do in order to sustain the plantain industry? One of the things that we can do is that today we are losing our indigenous food recipes. I mean, the food that we ate as young children and so on are no longer available. We are forgetting them and so on. So it is important for us in the agricultural sector to also link up with the food sector and to revive some of these recipes and promote them as international cuisine. What am I talking about? I'm talking about something which we used to call banfo besi. And banfo besi is just, cassava dough with a little sugar and so on, and which is fried. It's a delicious something. Epiti has to do with ripe plantain, which has been pounded with a little cassava or flour and so on, and it is steamed and so on. Now, all of this can be reintroduced. All of this can form part of our cuisine. Now, I don't understand why people live in Accra. They attend board meetings in Accra, and they have to be fed. Now, all of that cuisine is European cuisine. They're ordering food from the first-class hotels in our country and so on. Isn't it possible, if we have to feed people who attend board meetings, to try some of these recipes, to popularize some of these recipes and so on? Isn't it possible, you understand, to encourage the consumption of local food as state dinners and all? I mean, I've been around the world and I've attended a number of, receptions and so on. I mean, most of the time, these are occasions that host countries use to advertise their products, to make people used to their products and so on. Now, if you come to Ghana, the reverse is the truth. Our officials appear to be so shy of our own food, to be so embarrassed by our own food, that what we do at state functions, dinners, receptions, and so on, is to showcase foreign food. That attitude, perhaps, would have to change. And that would be a better celebration of Ghanaian farmers than what we do today. But on the plantain question, I mean, I listened to Professor Ninoy Dowona, and amongst us here, he is the clearest expert on food and agriculture. You understand? I mean, he's a lecturer in the Department of Agriculture, has been there for a very long time, has conducted research on agriculture and so on. And who am I to doubt what Professor Ninoy Dowona says about agriculture? Now, if you have a situation where a bunch of plantain is selling for 5 cedis, then you have a problem. How many bunches of plantain would a farmer be able to harvest in a year? And if a bunch is selling for 5 cedis, how is the farmer able to look after his wife, his children, pay their school fees, pay his rent, and so on? So you have a problem which you need to address. Of course, everybody who eats food is interested in a drop in food prices. A drop in food prices may mean that a lot more people are getting access to food and so on. But you see, you need to address this problem or this situation within the context of a national policy, which looks at how to ensure that all working people, and that includes farmers, can have roofs over their head, can have access to potable water, can be able to educate their children, and so on. What is that policy which does not discriminate against the farmer, does not discriminate against the taxi and truck driver, and so on? What is that policy which stabilizes prices at a certain level, which is convenient for the consumer of agricultural produce and also conducive and healthy for the farmer? What is that national policy? I haven't seen any such policy, and I worry very deeply about that. So you still have a situation where there's bumper harvest, the farmer suffers. Where the weather and other factors are so horrible, the farmer still suffers. So the farmer continues to suffer in all situations. Maybe this is the time to bring people like Professor Ninoy Dowona and others together in order to be able to address these problems that confront, farmers. Now, I want to focus some attention on cocoa. And I want to focus attention on cocoa, not because I believe that we should continue producing cocoa in the numbers that we are doing. Because strictly speaking, the level of cocoa production does not make sense. Look, in this competitive world, those who produce the dessert of others, what others use as dessert, are disadvantaged. Because it is something they can very easily do without in situations of hardship and so on. You understand? Again, we do know that the major manufacturing concerns in the cocoa industry and so on are beginning to look at synthetic cocoa rather than the kind of cocoa that we grow. Again, the history, the study of cocoa, within a historical context, reveals that the more we produce, the less we earn. The more we produce, the less we earn. Again, that also reveals that countries like Ghana, like Cote d'Ivoire, and so on, which are the major producers of the crop, are not part of the effort to determine prices. The prices are determined by cartels in Europe and other places. I mean, nobody factors in what we think, what we want, and so on. You understand? And yet, when it comes to the importation of the inputs for the cocoa sector and so on, we are also not the people who determine the prices. The prices are determined by other cartels in Europe and elsewhere and so on. Now, this unfair international economic arrangement, as it applies to the cocoa sector, is to our detriment, and we need to be looking at that very, very closely. If you look at the effort and resources which go into cocoa production, if they were deployed in other sectors, it could give us comparative advantage. You understand? How many cocoa farmers do you need to produce 100 bags of cocoa? At what cost? And so on. If you do that, and we also begin to look at the number of people who are engaged in the production of one car, the cost of production and so on, you will find that those who are engaged in the production of vehicles, have an advantage over us, because we are selling our cocoa in exchange for vehicles, for medical supplies and so on. And we are disadvantaged because of the economics of production and so on. So we need to look at that. And that is the reason why I say that I am not one who believes that we should maintain our level of production and spend all the resources we do on cocoa. Again, does it make sense that our people don't actually eat cocoa? Our people don't consume cocoa a lot. And we are putting a lot of effort into the production of cocoa for export. And using the money we earn to import food items. Indeed, today, Ghana is the third largest importer of tomato paste from Germany. Why don't we spend some of that effort producing tomatoes here so that we don't have to import tomatoes from Germany? You understand? And we are boasting about the fact that we are exporting plantains to Burkina Faso. Maybe it is good news and so on. But at the same time, you are importing cocoyam from La Côte d'Ivoire. And we are importing tomatoes from Germany and Burkina Faso and so on. Whereas we have favorable conditions for the cultivation of tomatoes, we have favorable conditions for the cultivation of cocoyam and so on. Indeed, when it comes to rice, it's even sadder. I don't know if my English is correct. But it is sad because all the 10 regions of Ghana have favorable conditions for the cultivation of rice. But that is not the end of the story. Indeed, the rice which is produced in Ghana has better nutritional value than the white rice we are importing from Thailand and elsewhere. So why don't you spend some of the effort on the cultivation of rice? Why don't you spend some of the effort on the cultivation of rice? Because we have favorable conditions for the cultivation of rice. But Radio Gold does many good things many times. And I've picked up a document from the website of Radio Gold, which is more than interesting. It's a document dated the 20th of November, 2018. And it's a petition which is addressed to the Chief Executive of the Ghana Cocoa Board. Now, I've read through this document, which is an 8-page document. And my friend, my legs are shaking. Because if you read the document very, very carefully, it is clear that if we continue on the current tangent, it is just possible that by next year, the LBCs, that is the local buying companies, who buy the cocoa and give them to the Ghana Cocoa Marketing Board for export and so on, they will collapse. The LBCs are threatened with imminent complete collapse. And as a result of this situation, that the LBCs have written this petition to the Chief Executive of the Cocoa Board. Now, interestingly, I looked at the signatories to the petition, and they include the state-owned PBC Limited, the produce buying company. It includes Royal Commodities Limited. It includes Trans Royal Ghana Limited, Prestige Cocoa, and so on and so on. And the petition is simply alarming. This petition starts off with the introduction, which simply says that they face many threats and that they want to draw attention to the threats that they face. And then it goes, to describe the history of the emergence of the license buying companies. But I'm going to spend some time to read portions of this petition which are very, very alarming. And it says, it's headed, the petitioners head this portion, the phenomena of adding extra cash to the producer price. It's a very interesting 2 paragraphs. And it says that foreign local buying companies are actually telling farmers, cocoa farmers, that the government is cheating them. That the government could have paid a higher producer price, but is refusing to pay them the higher producer price. And therefore, the foreign buying companies, are going to pay them more than the government has asked them to pay them. This is a huge problem. You have foreign cocoa buying companies operating in the country, which are actually vigorously campaigning against the government and telling farmers that the government is a cheat. That the government could pay them more, but is refusing to pay them more. And they love Ghanaian farmers so much that they are going to pay them a little extra. This is what is happening in the cocoa growing areas. But let me read this interesting 2 paragraphs, and I'll try and read a few more places. It says, in recent times, the foreign LBCs have been engaging in setting up power producer prices by adding extra cash on each bag of cocoa purchased above the producer price announced by the Cocoa Board. This is done under the pretext of sustainability program from which the foreign LBCs generate substantial funds. The foreign LBCs receive a premium from off-takers as an estimated amount of $100 to $250 per metric ton. And this is what is being misappropriated by them to pay an add-on to the government-approved producer price for conventional cocoa. These funds are meant for sustainability programs, but the funds are being misapplied as top-up in order to gain unfair competitive advantage. Foreign LBCs such as Cargill, Olam, Nyankopa, Agrocom or Amajaro, Ecom, etc. add extra cash ranging from 10 cedis to 25 cedis on each bag of cocoa purchased to the producer price of 475 Ghana cedis. This practice by the foreign LBCs can best be described as engaging in black marketing. This practice has the effect of undermining the government and the regulator in terms of pricing and the control of marketing of the commodity. Farmers on a regular basis are told by the foreign LBCs that the government of Ghana is at will to increase the producer price of cocoa, but has decided not to do so, and that out of the love and care they have for Ghanaian cocoa farmers, they have decided to add some extra cash to the producer price. You understand? And this is very interesting. Now, the LBCs are also complaining about access to working capital and cost of capital. You understand? Now, how do you celebrate the cocoa farmer? When the bodies mandated to purchase cocoa from them, first of all, have a problem getting working capital. And they have a huge problem with the cost of borrowing and so on. And I like to read their own statement, not my statement, their own statement. And they say, Cocoa Board is supposed to provide seed fund for the internal marketing of cocoa. It's also a known fact that the indigenous LBCs embark on substantial borrowing from commercial banks at very high interest rates to complement the seed fund from the Cocoa Board to be able to meet funding requirements for cocoa purchases. During the 2007-2008 crop season, local LBCs borrowed from Cocoa Board with seed fund guarantee at an interest rate of 14% per annum, and additionally from Commercial Bank at very excruciating interest rates of between 25 to 30% per annum. The cost of borrowing alone takes 40 to 50% of local LBC margins. I hope you note that. The cost of borrowing alone can take up to 50% of the margins of the local LBCs. Unlike the foreign LBCs, who after borrowing from Cocoa Board hardly source funds from the local banks but turn to their head offices outside Ghana for funding at very low and competitive interest rates. There's no doubt that the foreign LBCs have advantage over local ones in terms of access to funding at lower finance costs. So this is very clear. The local buying companies in the cocoa sector are suffering, one, because they do not have adequate working capital, and where they borrow from the banks, the cost of borrowing alone can be up to 50% of their margins and so on. And then they go on to talk about operational costs. And this is just simply shocking. And if you add the problems they are getting from the operational costs to the problems they are getting from raising working capital and so on, my brother, there's nothing in it. Maybe if you permit me, it's a long paragraph, but if you permit me, I'll read it in order to make matters very clear. It says, the indigenous LBCs, especially the produce buying company, which is for the people of Ghana, the produce buying company, which is for the people of Ghana, have a wide geographical spread and are located in areas where foreign LBCs are reluctant to operate from. Without PBC and other indigenous LBCs operating in the hinterland, farmers producing in those areas would have difficulty of selling their beans. And the state definitely would be the ultimate victim, since much revenue would have been denied to the state. Most of these foreign LBCs do not have shares in the several operational areas. They use monetary enticement to buy cocoa from the agents of the PBC and other indigenous LBC, thereby putting the indigenous LBCs in distressful situations. It's important to note that PBC and other indigenous LBCs control over 80% of the infrastructure and setup needed to buy cocoa from the country. Additionally, PBC and other indigenous LBCs employ over 80% of the formal workforce in the cocoa sector, and the collapse of the PBC and other local LBCs will lead to mass layoffs with serious social, economic, and political and security implications for the people of Ghana. It should be noted that the foreign LBCs would not be able to handle the expected output of all the interventions designed to push production by Cocoa Board to over 1 million metric tons per year, thus likely to adversely affect the revenues of the Ghanaian state. It's clear. You know, the people, the companies directly involved in cocoa purchases are telling us that the dream to produce 1 million metric tons a year is going to turn out to be a pipe dream. It is not possible to realize that under the prevailing, circumstances and so on. And then it goes on about other things. But I like to read this portion, which has to do with the value of the Ghanaian cedi, the falling value of the Ghanaian cedi, because I think it's important. They write, the foreign LBCs are multinationals and repatriate their profits to their head offices in their respective countries. Hence, the continuous pressure on the Ghanaian cedi. They would always need the foreign currency to repatriate their profit, with its attendant consequences on the Ghanaian cedi and so on. And then there's this part. The government of Ghana, the government of La Côte d'Ivoire and so on, they've all been making noises about ending smuggling in the cocoa sector. And this is what the LBCs say. The collaborative effort between the governments of Ghana and La Côte d'Ivoire to curb smuggling of cocoa across the borders of the two countries will be a mirage if foreign LBCs and any other LBCs are not stopped from adding extra cash to the producer price on the pretext of incentive or sustainability. The cocoa that is purchased with extra cash is not sourced from registered farmers under a certification program, but is purchased from anybody on the market, which can motivate individuals to make sure that their cocoa reaches a certain buyer regardless of location. You understand? Now, they've gone on to make 6 recommendations. I mean, they are long recommendations. And indeed, for those who want to follow this discussion and who want to have a full picture of what is happening, I would refer them to the website of Radio Gold, because everything is there. You know, the recommendations are there and so. So please refer to the website of Radio Gold, and all the relevant information is there. Now, the point I'm making simply is this. This is a huge threat to the economy of Ghana. This is a huge threat to the cocoa farmer. You understand? And this is even a threat to the electoral chances of the government in power today. And yet, we are celebrating Farmers' Day as if all is nice and fine. You understand? We are making speeches boasting about how better we have done than the previous government and so on. And yet, look at the situation on the ground. You understand? Now, I think the point also has to be made very, very strongly. And I think that my brother, Broja Jimfi, made that point quite eloquently. I'm only adding on to it. You cannot develop agriculture without focusing attention, serious attention, on national infrastructural development. The two are linked. So when you have political parties who say that and so on, there's a problem. Because you may not eat the road, but the road can facilitate production and distribution, you know, in such a manner as to alleviate suffering. The infrastructure can create conditions for the realization of national objectives, which improves, you know, the lives of our people and so on. You see, we are talking about Farmers' Day. It will appear to the casual observer that this has no link with other sectors of the economy. They do have a link with other sectors, indeed all sectors of the economy. Because we cannot be talking about the welfare of farmers and so on if you are not talking about healthcare development. You understand? Now, in a situation where sometimes pregnant women have to be carried in wheelbarrows across mountains and over long distances to hospitals and so on, our priority is to supply blood by drones. Is that our priority? What happened to the idea of chip compounds, which brings Medicare closer to the people? You are abandoning the idea of chip compounds to go and fly blood and artisanate and so on by drones. Drones whose total capacity is not more than, 1.5 kilograms. I mean, what happened to us? Look.
So that would be 3 bottles of this water.
Yeah, and you know, these farmers, they live in the remotest part of the country. These are the farmers who live in mud houses with thatched roof, in areas which are susceptible to snake bites, where there are no hospitals and so on. So you can organize all the activities you want in the regional, district, and national centers, you know, and praise yourself to the high heavens. If they don't have chip compounds, if they don't have immediate access to potable water and so on, Massa, we are joking. We are clearly joking. And this has actually brought me to the issue of the drones. And maybe I should save it for another time. But this morning, I've read a statement which has been issued by a group, the Laboratory Technicians Association or whatever. And Massa, when I read their statement, I actually felt like crying. Quite honestly. I mean, these are practitioners in the field. They are the people who have been trained on drug safety, how to store drugs, move drugs, and so on. And one of the allegations they are making is simply that they were not consulted at all in all this business. That they were not consulted at all. And they are saying that, look, it's the Ghana Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists, which is based in Kolebu, and the statement was issued in Accra on the 5th of December 2008. It's a one-page statement, Maybe I'll leave the statement here and you can put it on your website. And then I'll read only one paragraph. And it says, the Ghana Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists, the professional body solely responsible for the practice of medical laboratory science in Ghana, was not consulted as a stakeholder when over 70% of the work in transfusion science and medicine is performed by laboratory scientists across the country. And it goes on to show, it says, for example, that the amount of money going to be spent on this exercise can actually be used to do so many things. Listen, and I'm quoting just a small portion. The money for one distribution site for the contract period could retool some existing blood banks, set up over 100 new blood banks across the country, and employ qualified personnel to function. Need I say more? Should I say more? It's so clear. You understand? And then the other thing that we have to avoid, and I insist that we have to avoid, is that, you see, when issues come up, and we are commenting on these issues, most of the time, you find us, the commentators, skewing the discussions deliberately in favor of one political party or the other. I think that's terrible. Facts are facts, wrongs are wrongs, rights are rights, and so on. And it does not matter which government is in power. If you don't adopt that attitude, even when we say the most sensible things, they can easily be misconstrued as political propaganda. And I think it's about time that we began dealing with facts as facts, began facing reality in order to be able to change some of these things. Right now, if we talk about this use of drones to supply medicines and so on, there are some who think that we are anti-MPP or pro-NDC. Should that be the case? The thing simply doesn't make sense. And we should leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. And
so in a rainstorm, or during a rainstorm, can the drone move?
You have gone even too far, Prof.
I don't know.
That's a good question, huh?
Is it not that small thing?
Yes.
But Prof,
that's a good question.
Prof, why should we deliberately keep medical supplies out of the reach of users so that it becomes necessary to fly them with drones or to put them in submarines?
Yeah, can't we decentralize the banks?
I think an expert in
the blood banks, can they be decentralized?
We don't even have enough health centers. There are many districts that do not even have health facilities. So why don't you concentrate on that? And the director of the Ghana Health Service was vehemently supporting this. You see the tragedy for our
and then we say we are copying it from Rwanda. When the conditions in Rwanda are substantially different from the conditions in Ghana. Look at electricity rich, the rich of electricity in Rwanda, compare it to the rich of electricity in Ghana.
Yes.
Let's begin to do things that make a little sense, if not full sense, at least a little sense.
The Director General sounded more like a politician, and that's a tragedy. You see, technocrats.
He's a politician.
Yeah, well,
put in that position,
yo.
so he speaks as such, and it's
That's
something.
pathetic.
It doesn't actually make sense to move the central medical stores to 4 different locations because the Ghana Health Service will have to stock this fly zip line with medical supplies from the medical stores, so that these now become mini stores where they can deploy
Have we done test
medical
flights?
supplies. That should
Have we done
have
test
actually
flights?
gotten to the medical centers.
Have we done tests?
Before.
It's whether rule is what I saw at Dowenya some weeks ago. Some 4 policemen. I mean, something small like this size, just about some 20 meters above them. That's the drone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Randy. What of if the battery fails?
Let me just do a couple of your messages on Facebook. Abdul Rahman says, "Good morning, comrades. It's rather unfortunate
When you don't have real line.
those with the better and overwhelming ideas don't get power to implement the ideas. Cote d'Ivoire has taken a step forward for establishing a very first chocolate factory, though foreign owned. Everything shows NDC will take power come 2020 elections in Ghana. Hope they are taking notes of these beautiful ideas to take Ghana to the next level in development that benefit the ordinary citizens by capitalizing on the building of factories that work on our raw materials." And that's from he sent it from Algeria, Adra. He sends his greetings to Uncle Kwesi Pratt. And well, look, that's the message on Facebook. Just trying to get a bit more. My messages are rearranging themselves. So let me take some on WhatsApp and start with this one says, Radio Gov, this government is the West in the Fourth Republic. Cocoa farmers cannot be paid. They have to sell cocoa on credit. The fertilizer is sold at 80 instead of giving it out for free. And that's from Ofusu. This one, good morning, Senna. Akufo-Addo never and could never have introduced hand pollination, or as they call it, artificial pollination. In 1989, I was in Brema, Esikuma, in a house with one lady called Beatrice Odro. Later, Beatrice Aiden, who was a pollination assistant with the CSD. That's from Newton, Jessica. And this one says, "Good morning, Radio Gun and panelists. I want to inform President Akufo-Addo and his government that cocoa farmers are not enthused with this high-sounding ideas. We are tired of false promises that forget the high labor costs, high transport fares, huge taxes, kicked liquid fertilizers, and hoodoo policies." That's from Wofa Kwame in Nyinem. And this one from Antilusi in Gweja says, "Nana going around commissioning GM projects is laughable. Shame, MPP." And Abu Spain says that, "Good morning, comrade. Anybody who knows he cannot contribute the cocoa money, not less than 100,000, should back off. How will you be president without having just this amount? Ghana is a country, not a village. NDC is a big party than others, so if you can't stand the heat, leave the kitchen." Well, he's talking about our second topic. Kwamina acidity ahafo. A train says, when NDC was in government under Mahama, the MPP led Akufo-Addo thought it was easy to govern. But look at the mess they have led us into. And Senna, I am highly worried for NDC in the 2020 elections. In fact, if no proper measure is put in place by them to ensure that my vote counts, I swear some of us will not vote at all. Evans Goku from Mepe in Tong Bluchi in the Volta region. And Senna, my name is Odinihu Deborah from Tishi Gono Schools. Is it not Nanado who told Galamseyers that he won't leave the ban, so they should not vote for him in 2020? what has changed for him to lift it? Galamseyers, beware. Well, so those are the messages I'm getting from you, and we are moving to our next topic that has to do with it was a discussion we started last week on the NDC presidential primaries. And before, let me start the conversation by going through portions of two statements. Now, this one is coming from Kojo Bonsu 2020 campaign team. This press release dated 8 December 2018 says, I would like to thank the Council of Elders for their prompt response to our petition regarding the NDC flag bearership election. It is with deep regret that after considerable deliberation and reflection, I have decided to end my campaign for the flag bearership of the NDC today. However, my boundless optimism for the long-term future of the NDC and Ghana at large remains steadfast. The fight is far from over. I am not ending the fight for unity and accountability, and I'm not ending the fight for victory for the NDC. As a dedicated member of the NDC, I look forward to working with the party and elected flag bearer to advance issues of importance to our beloved country. I will use this opportunity to wish all the aspirants the best of luck, and I urge them to unite after the election and work together with the eventual winner, because without unity, we cannot defeat the NPP come 2020. Lastly, I want to, so that's the statement coming from him, Mr. Kojo Bonsu, and so that is from him.
That's a very sensible statement, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, Kojo should have done this a long time ago. I don't know why you waited so long. You understand?
This one actually came in yesterday, and this from Elikli Magdamava. He says, I wish to announce that after much soul searching, prayer, and consultations with well-meaning Ghanaians, loved ones, and family, I've decided to abate my push for the presidency come 2020 and throw my weight behind His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. I know this is very much unexpected. However, there's so much wisdom in taking this decision. It is also in line with the majority of the views in our great party that he is the best person to lead us into battle come 2020. And it says that
this is very much unexpected.
Why did you realize that?
This is unexpected.
And it says that beyond that, our own future and vision and ambitions must be anchored on a broad-based support that will make it easy to unite the party when it is time for us to lead. In the circumstances, I will not be picking up nomination forms by the deadline set by the National Executive Committee. I encourage my campaign team and all supporters to submit to the vision of the Go for GM campaign for total and resounding victory of the National Democratic Congress in 2020. That's signed by him. So now,
you are right.
So now, maybe a bit more has changed.
You have been here to get free.
Yes.
But seriously, look, I think that my good friend Kojo Bonsu deserves tons of commendation. I mean, Kojo should have realized this much long ago. But if he's just waking up to the realization, maybe it's not too late.
Okay.
And he should be congratulated for facing reality. You know, so Kojo, I salute you.
Maybe we can continue the discussion for us. We understand that Mr. Gustano has also picked forms. Nuruddin Duso has done that. Dr. Kospi Gabra, and then the rest. So let's start with Mr. Bujajemfi.
Well, I have to join Mr. Pratt in congratulating not only Kojo Bonsu, but also Elik Plem.
Yeah.
You know, he has been my lawyer in the U.S. Ghana Military Cooperation Agreement at the Supreme Court. And so if today they have realized that they need to get out of the contest and to support the party, one, it's clear that he's going to support one of the candidates, which is former President Mahama. And Kojo says he's going to continue to offer his support to the party and any flag bearer that is elected. Obviously, the election is not yet done, but we know that the ultimate outcome is that His Excellency, the former president, will be elected by how many votes is what we are looking at now. If you look at the ambitions of all of the persons that have come up, the 12 people that expressed interest in September when the party gave the green light for flag bearer hopefuls to express interest and to be able to go around the country visiting the mass delegates who are going to engage in this election. We have now seen that 2 persons are out, 8 persons have picked the forms, and we are yet to hear from the other 2. Nominations are closing today, so they still have some time. And we can anticipate that even picking the form is one stage, and filing, getting the 300,000 to pay is also another stage of it. But in all, I strongly believe that the party has, handled this whole process very, very well, because at the beginning of this contest, many people had picked before time. You got some of the presidential hopefuls going into the constituencies, visiting the regions, and it is because they knew that the party's constitution had a time bar, and we needed to do this election before the end of December. So they thought that they could start their campaign. And because of that, the party decided to give them that opportunity to express interest and to go around campaigning. But interestingly, the core delegates who are going to vote in this election have not, properly been approached by all these hopefuls. You get to some of the regions, some of the aspirants go, they invite 4 out of 9 people to talk to them. Some go and do constituency base and do not go to the branches to talk to the people. So you wonder how they are going to get the votes, because if you are not engaging those that are actually going to vote, then it becomes a matter of concern. But I understood the concern of the 400,000 Ghana cedi because going to the delegates themselves is not easy for some of these presidential hopefuls. How to, engage all the 9 from, and it's about 1,300 persons on the average per constituency. So if you cannot spend money in going down to the people, how do you get money to pay for the nomination fee? And so it was a concern that the party has listened from the Council of Elders level and all of that. But the party still would have to raise money in order to conduct the election. Many people confuse the election of 2015 with this election. In 2015, the party had both presidential primaries and parliamentary primaries at the same time. And so those of us who ran for parliamentary candidates were asked to pay 10,000 Ghana cedis as nomination fee. And we needed to, pay. And it was across board in constituencies where you know that even in winning the primaries, it's difficult for you to get to parliament. You still needed to pay that money. And that's how the party was able to mobilize funds and to take 50,000 from presidential aspirants. So this is quite different. It is not like we are going to have a parliamentary election at the same time where the party could have that leverage of mobilizing from their parliamentary aspirants too. And so the party must begin to see how it can raise enough resources to run the election, because it is not going to be easy in the printing of materials, in getting the delegates to come. And I'm happy that the party is taking charge of the entire election and making sure that they get the delegates from their communities to the constituency voting centers. That is the way to go, because that is what will prevent the monocracy that people speak against. In the NPP's 2014 presidential primaries, the Alan Akufo-Addo, that election, what happened? They charged 85,000 Ghana cedis and left the delegates at the mercy of the aspirants. And so on the day of the election, Akufo-Addo, then candidate, could mobilize as much as 6 billion old cedis, which is 600,000 Ghana cedis, and then gave it out as transportation and feeding for these delegates to come to the voting center and decide who should be their flag bearer. And that is how come we got that result. You see the number of votes Alan got in that election. We, as a party, did not want to leave the delegates in the hands of presidential hopefuls. If any presidential hopeful want to do anything, it will be in addition to what the basic thing that the party has already done in terms of getting the persons transported to the voting centers to vote. And so I am, happy that the party has listened, but the party must begin to look for ways to do that. Now, the worrying trend is the continuous attack on some of the aspirants. And it is, clearly targeted at His Excellency, the former president. And I'm very worried that senior members of the party who are in a position to know what is before us, the 2020 elections, rather chooses to provide sound bites and news stories that could be used against the party in the 2020 elections. I strongly believe that this is a matter that the Council of Elders must engage the presidential hopefuls on, because we cannot, travel like that. The party has a constitution which gives the party some timelines to conduct elections. And so if we have gone for Congress, and Congress has amended the constitution to say that instead of 24 months to elections in opposition, we are saying 20 months at least to general elections. Now, this 20 months ends somewhere in March, or on the March 7th or so. Now, you still want the elections to be taken to 7th March. What happens if there's a tie, if there's a runoff election? How is the party going to conduct that election? So we need to have some space. And taking into consideration the timetable of the Electoral Commission and some of the activities that are going on, that the party has not had enough attention on, bringing the government to on its toes and all of that. Of course, the parliamentary group is doing their best, but the party itself must begin to take action and to expose this government and to put the party in a position that Ghanaians would realize that bringing the NDC back is what we need. So it is important that we focus on the new date that has come, because I've heard many people still pushing that, why don't we push it, because of Christmas holidays. You want to be NDC presidential candidate. The 2020 election, as we speak now, will be held on 7 December. If there is a runoff in that election, and you are NDC presidential candidate, are you going to argue that because of Christmas, the runoff should not come off within the stipulated time that the Constitution has given us? So these flimsy excuses for extension of time so that people get enough space to be attacking aspirants and giving the opposition arsenals, I think it was not good and it is not in the interest of the party. I have read a statement also today from the campaign team of former President John Mahama, where he has also, made the point that it's important that the party goes by the time lines that we have given, and also to find other means of raising funds for the election, because now he is a candidate. When he was not a candidate, he contributed towards the National Delegates Congress. Many others thought that if you are running your own election, produce the money to do it. He was, benevolent enough to support the party's National Congress. Now he is a candidate, and so it is difficult for him in that position to fund an election that is running with people who are even running him down and are not, saying things that are in the interest of the party. So I believe that the Functional Executive Committee at this point must begin to find other means of raising funds in order to support the few that may file, on the 17th and on the 18th of December ahead of the elections.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Sana, let me state, as I've always been saying, and I believe in it, that's why I keep saying that. The 2020 elections is an election that's going to be between truth and lies. And I have said that if any of the opposition political parties do not have as its aim ensuring to see to the defeat of the current government, then none of the opposition parties has any business preparing to contest the 2020 elections. And if this is the aim, then the opposition parties must have a meeting of minds and have leaders who have this sole aim for us to go into the 2020 elections as a united front, just to save this country from the mismanagement taking place, just to save this country and its future from the incompetency and the corruption that is going on as far as this government is concerned. And so now it is the NDC who seems to be running their internal elections. I'm sure after the NDC, or as we get into the coming year, the other political parties, including the PNC, will be doing the same. And the hope is that we will all elect leaders who will have this aim at hand, and then we'll be looking at the 2020 having a victory for this country and for this nation. The two releases that you read, I mean, in every election, what you do is to assess and weigh yourself. And if you realize that the fact that you have an interest, but you are not capable at that moment, it just becomes useless for you to still pursue and engage. Again, the funny thing about general elections are that when you attend one or you go into one election and you lose, you go into the same position and you lose, the chances are that you end up branding yourself as a loser. And so, people become fatigued and they become so tired of you. And that's why in every general election, timing is very important. So the fact that today you have an interest in a particular position doesn't just mean you should go in for it. You should weigh yourself and find out whether you are fit and you have the what it takes to win. And so Kwadwo Bonsu coming out with this, I mean, it is clear that he has weighed himself. The other one, who is a lawyer, Boje's lawyer, who says that he knows the comment is unexpected, right? I'm struggling to understand what he means by that. Because, I mean, clearly, if you are observing with a political eye, it is clear that he also didn't have any chance in this their internal election. So for me, it is not unexpected, it is extremely expected. Now, when you were done with the two, I was tempted to ask you, what about the others? Because I was thinking that there will be more letters at this stage coming from most of the candidates. I mean, it is clear that most of the candidates are just in and from the terrain and listening to what is happening within the NDC, particularly from their delegates and individuals who are going to vote. It is clear that most of these persons do not have a chance at this stage, you know. But, I mean, that is their right. They can go into it. The other issue has to do with, and this will be very brief, comments that seems to be coming from some of the aspirants. You see, in political elections, I've contested national elections at various positions, you know, right from 2007. And so I know this terrain very well, or to a large extent, I know it. What I will advise the aspirants is that this is just an internal election. The bigger election is the external one. And in any general election, the first thing you need is a united house. And so internally, when you are going to have an election, it is important to have this at the back of your mind, that my actions and my inactions will not break that unity internally. The second thing is this: when you are contesting internally, you should realize that you are first and foremost a family. And so, yes, you may want to have some words against each other, but ensure that those words do not end up becoming bullets and ammunitions for your bigger opponents. And that is individuals outside your political party. I've been hearing comments coming from some of the aspirants, and it is very clear that whether consciously or unconsciously, they are giving bigger ammunitions to political parties and members outside their party. And it will not augur well. After all, they have up to when? Is it 9th or when are you having your elections, Bridger?
26 July. 26 January.
26 January. So let's say they have till the end of January. After January, they should know that whatever they do or they did from this period to the January, it will no longer matter within the party, but it will have an effect beyond the party. And individuals that they are going to face, political parties that they are going to face outside their party, are going to use that ammunition. And it's going to be weightier. You know why? Because those ammunitions are ammunitions coming from within themselves. And so I want to caution them, the aspirants. Interestingly, I haven't heard John Mahama making any comments making reference to any of the other opponents. It should be about issues, and that is what I expect all of them to have in mind, that it should be about issues. They shouldn't create more problem for themselves. That will not augur well for them. Now, coming to the issue which has to do with the filing fee, honestly, when I heard of the 400,000, I said to myself, this cannot be. I was very disappointed that a party could have that figure coming out. And my disappointment was more when they gave the reason being that it's an avenue to raise funds. Fundraising. The party needs money. But I think a time has come for not just the NDC, but all the political parties in this country, for us to start thinking of innovative ways of raising funds. We should be able to do that. We should be thinking of innovative, at least in Nigeria, I know that there are political parties that owns farms. Okay? It serves as an employment avenue for their members. And the farm products they end up selling, and they are able to get some money to run their party. So we should be able to start thinking outside the box, and we shouldn't just be limiting it to filing fees. So assuming if this is just for the purposes of raising funds, I don't think next 2 years they'll be having flag bearer elections. I don't think next 3 years they'll be having flag bearer elections. So what happens to the years and the periods where flag bearer elections are not going to take place? How are they going to raise funds? So I personally think, one, the money was on the high side, and not only the money being on the high side, they couldn't really give me any strong reason for putting or pegging the money at that figure, 400,000. The fear for me was that you end up, and everyone that I heard when that figure came out, we're talking about, if you want to lead, if you want to be a flag bearer, if you want to be a president, you should be able to have the ability to raise funds. But no one was talking about the sources of where the funds would have been raised from. If today I want to be a flag bearer, and you are telling me that I should have the ability to raise funds, and I know of friends, or even if I don't know of any friend, or I don't know of any contact, someone comes to me and says, look, I want to help you, I'm going to give you money. And it turns out that this person is a drug baron, a person who engages in illegality. Don't you think that if I should end up winning, there will be some level of influence? Tomorrow, if I become president and those who sponsored me want me to ensure that a particular bill is passed or law is passed, which should not inure to the general benefit of the states, I mean, don't you think that I am going to be put in a position where it will be difficult for me to say no to those who sponsored me? Okay, so in as much as we want leaders to exhibit their ability to raise funds, we should also be cautious, careful in realizing that not just the raising of funds should be the only focus. We should also be looking at the sources and how the person can raise the funds. But I think personally that the political parties should find innovative ways of raising funds to run the parties, other than just limiting and concentrating on filing fees. But hey, that is their internal decision. I mean, they can decide on it. I am only happy. I'm happy that a petition came and the Council of Elders engaged the National Executive Council, and the National Executive Council, we are told, gave the mandate to the functional executives, and they decided to do a review of the figure. For me, I would have even wished that the figure would have come down more, but for it to even move from where it was to where it is, it has given me some joy that, again, this is also a political party that seems to be listening to the sentiments of their members. And that is one thing, as leaders, we should also be taking from that.
Prof. Okay, thank you. I think I also have to commend Mr. Kudubonsu for the content of his statement, the act itself and the content. You know, as Comrade Wilson indicated, this is an internal matter, but there are dimensions that we all have to comment on. When the statement was made by the General Secretary announcing the schedule and then the fee, the reactions, obviously, you say the figure is on the high side. It's a subjective argument. In the real sense, if parties are running properly, and I think Comrade Kwesi made this point last week, and I listened to him, that this shouldn't be 8.5 million cedis to run a congress or run an election to elect a flag bearer. It shouldn't be a big border. But if it has not happened, That is why we have to organize. We all agree that we want, other than gathering, say, 3,000 delegates to come to a center and within one night we vote, we want to adopt this innovative and yet well-organized approach in getting almost 250,000 people to vote. And if you have that sense of involvement, 2020, you voted to elect the flag bearer, you will definitely vote and maybe mobilize more people. And that is a very innovative approach, and we must commend the party for that. But then on the other side, if you say the money is too much, and I read a piece, I don't know, on the net, that Comrade Leo Kran said the aspirants who had gone to petition the founder should go to him to collect the money to come and pay. If there was true. So you see, and the pitch and at times the sentiments expressed by some of the aspirants could be provocative. You understand? You've been a leading member, and today you are saying there are other innovative ways to mobilize. Did you evolve one? You see, and parties contest presidential elections, but they also have the option not to contest. But it may be absurd. So if you offer yourself, and indeed I always say that a candidate is in a real sense a private or what do you call independent candidate. It is a letter the general secretary or the party authorizes to be written. That will then give you the symbol of the party. Yeah. So the party is giving you a platform for a high office with enormous powers and responsibilities. You want to vie for this position, and you come here and you are lamenting on 400,000. But I heard a good piece from Comrade Adongo, who said the President Mahama's team had also identified with the petition that they also felt it was too high, and that if it was reduced, fine. If not, they will also try as much as possible to mobilize funds, and that they've already mobilized more than what is needed. And then when you think of it strictly, you mean you want to be the president of the Republic of Ghana, and you cannot do so with less than 4 million votes, so based on data that we've gathered from 1992. So you cannot get 1,000 people to give you 500 cedis. You understand? So these are the dimensions. And you know, the reason why I'm enthused and then very excited about the content of Comrade Bunso's statement is I ask myself, those of us who are not in the NDC and the MPP, what has made the chances of a change in 2000 real or apparent? It's because now you are comparing and contrasting. We are already saying the president is going around commissioning projects and not giving any attribution. And now we can see the free SHS against the E-block agenda of JDM. And so when you hear other candidates, the NDC is a winsome party, but it's not an unconquerable party. We can say that. So when you come to 2020, what are you going to tell the people? Even including President Mahama. It is a record of the performance of the last administration or previous administration. You get it? So if any other candidate becomes a flag bearer, what will you campaign on? You understand? And so you see people making comments, and some of them, my good friend, Honorable Bagby, if it's not true, fine. If it is, most unfortunately, that if JDM wins, the party will not win. You understand? So if my good friend Bagby wins, then the party will win. How can that be? Nobody can contest 2020 on the platform or the ticket of the NDC without pointing to the achievements of the last administration. There's no way. And that's the way people are saying that. They say, oh, now you get to broadcasting past President Akufo-Addo's residence and straight you are at Awudome. You understand? You are going to Ewutu or Winneba. You rather go over Kaswa, which used to be a hell, and now Ewutu. No, Brumburam is a problem because the project was to have a dual carriage beyond there. But attempt now. Budumburam now is worse than when you had Kaswa, but because the project is suspended. But the other leg from Kaswa through Amasaman is completed. So it is important that we've come this far, and we can only appeal to all the candidates in the run-up to the maybe 1 month more, 1.5 months more, that look, it's an internal fight, but the challenge is not a traditional stool or skin where the ruling houses can tear themselves and come and say, Comrade Wilson is a legitimate fellow, so elders and him or skin him. It is not so. This is a national election, and so we should conduct ourselves in the run-up to the election on the 26th of January 2019 in a manner that everybody will identify with the cause. And I think Comrade Bonso's statement is really fantastic and should be the clue for anybody who campaigns or those who throw in the towel before the date. But if you say you want to contest and 8 or 9 names are going to appear on ballot at 20,000 polling stations for over 250,000, then you must pay. If you understand this word, you must pay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. And Mr. Pratt.
Well, look, I think that all of us, whoever we are, whatever party we belong to, ought to be deeply concerned about the monetization of national politics. Because I've been to a few party congresses, and I went to one party congress where just when voting was about to start, articulators started driving into the university campus. And on the articulators, you saw refrigerators, you saw deep freezers, you saw motorbikes, and so on.
It's happening in my party, that's why I'm laughing.
Well, it's happening in some other parties also. And then delegates were told that all these goodies will be distributed when a particular candidate wins. So, the candidate won all right, but the articulators disappeared. You understand? But you know, why are you asking? You know, you and I were there together. You understand? So these things happen, and these things are abominable. They should be condemned. I mean, there have been reports of congresses where people are actually seen carrying 24-inch color televisions and so on. I mean, politics should be edified. National politics should be about policy alternatives. It has to be about selecting the scientific method for organization. It has to be about getting a candidate who will lead us to Paradiso and so on.
Hey,
that's what...
It's a sermon, Go ahead, sorry.
That's what national politics should be about. And therefore, I think very, very strongly that the monetization of politics needs to be condemned vehemently. But having said that, what is monetization of politics? When a party charges a branch of its leadership, and presidential aspirants actually constitute a branch of the leadership of a party, to help it raise funds, is that monetization? These funds are not going to influence delegates. I mean, come and help us to organize the Congress. Do you think that if all the candidates paid their 400,000 cedis to the party, or managed to raise the 400,000 cedis to the party, it could influence delegates? How would that influence delegates? In any case, if it was going to influence delegates, it would influence delegates equally, and so on. You understand? And I think that Mr. Seydou Nketia makes a very brilliant point when he says that the party was not expecting the aspirants to cough this money from their pockets or to sign personal checks and so on. And something very beautiful has happened in the National Democratic Congress that we should all be proud about, that we should all try and emulate. I mean, look, I was so overwhelmed when I saw ordinary members of the party line up at former President John Mahama's office, holding their 2 CDs and 5 CDs and so on, saying, we want to support the candidate of our choice. What can be more democratic than this? Before then, I'd seen a list of 500 people who were contributing 1,000 cedis each. And you know the beauty of it? They came from all sides of the party. I saw names of people who used to be members of the National Reform Party on that list. You understand? I saw people who were closely related to other candidates on the list. And if you see that list of 500 people, and you still have the courage to contest that election, then you must have the courage of a bull. You understand? Because if you see that list, the list is so intimidating. You understand? So, to my understanding, all of this would amount to what has come to be known as crowdfunding. And crowdfunding is a democratic exercise. Crowdfunding is not monetization of politics and so on. I think that we need to put things in the proper context. I know we don't have enough time, so I'm going to make one last comment. You know, in this business of national politics, we can put ourselves out of action very, very easily and simply. If you have candidates or aspirants who today are mounting platforms and are saying that I am the only person who can lead the NDC to victory, or any other party for that matter, and that if former President Mahama is elected as the candidate, the party will go into opposition and so on. What are they doing? They are writing themselves out of the party. Because just in case the President Mahama wins the election, how can you be part of the election campaign? How can you be part of the party machinery that is campaigning for victory? Because you have already told the whole world that you are going to lose. Yeah. You understand? So that's one part of the problem. The people, through their carelessness, through their unbridled ambition, through their determination to get rid of somebody they perhaps don't like, or maybe even hate, and so on, are writing themselves out of a process. You understand? But that's one part. The other part is that they are signaling to delegates, clearly signaling to delegates, that if it is not them, then the party should go to hell. And delegates would not take that kind of message lightly. And you can already see the reactions of party grassroots and so on. I mean, I'm not a member of the party, but I read what they write. I listen to them on radio and so on. It is becoming clear that that kind of message is being seen as very negative. And even listen to the NDC very closely, and I mean listen to the NDC, mainstream NDC and so on. Everybody is saying that this campaign must be decent, that this should not be a campaign of insult and so on. And they're saying that, look, as far as they're concerned, all the people who are putting themselves up to become presidential candidates are eminently qualified, indeed overqualified, and so on. And that should be the message. So if you have other aspirants saying the kinds of things that they are saying, I'm afraid it is obvious that the delegates are going to teach them a very, very, very bitter lesson, And if you listen very carefully, there's no doubt where the trend is leading, And that is why I'm so happy with my friend and brother and comrade Kodo Bonsu for doing the sensible thing, doing the right thing. You should have done it much, much earlier. But as they say, maybe better late than never. So, Kodo, better late than never. Thank you.
Thank you too. On the issue of the drone, just one message from Halidu Haruna. He says that in our health delivery system, primary health centers which are found in our villages do not administer essential drugs and blood transfusion. In fact, we don't even have enough blood in our hospitals because people are not willing to donate. We don't have hospital beds, and we are talking about drone carrying medicines to our hospitals. In case of emergency and the patient needs blood, is the hospital going to administer administer the blood to the patient on the floor or bench at the hospitals. We indeed need drone to carry common sense into the Flagstaff House. Well, just to say that if you want to buy any product from Franco Trading Enterprise, they're one of our sponsors, do that through their platforms, online platforms, because by doing that you get a 30% discount. So go to francotrading.com or francophones.com, or you can use the Franco Trading app, download it to the Google Play Store. Use it to order whatever you want.
Briefly.
Okay.
I mean, if you just allow me, so briefly. Look, last Wednesday was a very sad day for Pan-African television.
Okay.
We lost one of our most prominent, promising young chaps, David Pungo, who used to host the morning show around town. He died all of a sudden. I mean, the grief is so deep and so on. So, if you permit me, I'd like to use this platform to invite all of our well-wishers and friends and comrades to join us in paying tribute to this very young man. He was, I think, 28 years old, full of energy and so on, at the premises of Pan-African Television on Tuesday from 6 p.m. We intend to honor him. He's already been buried, and please join us, share our grief for a moment, and thank you very much.
Accept our condolences from the team here. And Sana, let me also be quick to congratulate the team that did the documentary on the farmers. Just
Patrick,
Patrick did a good work for this. It was so great. And yesterday,
so happy.
I'm telling you, yesterday I had the honor of being a co-presenter on your morning show, and it went well. The production went very well, and I want to congratulate Patrick, yourself, and all the team members. Okay.
And also to extend my condolence to Mr. Pratt and the Pan-African TV. Some of us who have become a known voice on that platform would join them on Tuesday evening to pay tribute to their lost staff.
So you heard the Abuja Jenki. He just ended for us. He's a former Ashanti Regional Youth Organizer.